FYI, they didn't name you, but I do believe Constantine and Rogan are discussing you here. Uh-oh.
True. Yeah.
But also, we're talking about that actually matters. You know, and it deserves to be taken seriously.
Yeah. Well, the answer is don't engage with those certain people.
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly. Whatever you can do to be in your hug box. Yes. Whatever you can do to stay in your hug box because you're too stupid, you're too inept, you're too incompetent a speaker. You can't find the right moderation. You can't find, for whatever reason, you just can't engage. True.
Learning that.
Yeah, we were having a conversation about one particular individual.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Don't bother.
I can't believe
He's so pained. I love how pained this little midget guy is about me. Thank you. Yes. Be pained.
People.
Yeah.
You know.
I'm learning that.
Yeah, we were having a conversation about one particular individual.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Don't bother.
I can't believe I didn't say anything about that discussion because I don't want anyone to waste their time watching it. It was
because he was embarrassed, because he was humiliated, because I did 2 weeks barely of the shittiest UK research imaginable, and that was enough to put this guy the fuck away, who's lived in this country with his criminal family's entire life, basically, since he was 6 years old. What an unbelievable loser. Oof.
Why?
Yeah.
Don't bother.
I can't believe I didn't say anything about that discussion because I don't want anyone to waste their fucking time watching it. It was awful.
I'm fascinated by that too, though, because I'm fascinated by these people that are doing that, where they're just trying to win and use tricks and be sneaky.
Tricks and sneaky. What was that part of the debate where he's like, this is what you do, your debate tactics? I'm like, what, ask you to define a word? He's like, yes. Okay.
Like they think of discourse in a completely different way.
Right.
They think about the whole thing.
Yeah, like you actually have a critical conversation where both sides are challenging each other to, further the arguments they're making, so you get past the level 1 talking point circle jerks that you guys engage in 4 hours of podcast. What is this? This is their 7th time? I think I saw them tweet this is the 7th time they've been on the show? Jesus.
Completely different way. They're completely ideologically captured, and the place they're starting from is, I want to prove this to be correct, not I want to know why this person believes it to be incorrect, and I want to find out if maybe we have common ground, and maybe they know something I don't, or maybe I know something they don't. Let's find out.
You know what I really want, and Constantine and I have talked about it a lot. I want somebody on the left to come out and be brilliant at debating and go to people on the right, well, you say this and you say this, but actually, let's look at this, let's look at that, and be a genuine intellectual force. And what I despair of is I haven't seen anyone be from the left like that in basically a generation.
I think the generation that you're talking about has been captured by some certain narratives that you have to agree to that aren't rational. So as soon as you do that and you align yourself with this particular ideology, you're already saying, I'm willing to believe some shit that doesn't make any sense at all, because this is the only way to be accepted by my tribe.
The projection on this is fucking crazy. For a man that has made so many bad predictions about politics, like the audacity to get up here and discuss the intellectuality of literally anybody that would disagree with you politically, like it's unbelievably shameless.
Josiah said, Destiny, at one point they bitch about debaters who fixate on definitions of words, FYI. So.
Okay. Do they talk about the fucking flying flame guys? Jesus. Damn.
Actually compromises you, and that also, I think, humiliates you in a certain way. It puts you in a position where you're saying something that you know can't be true, so you set up blind spots.
Do you think they know it's not true?
I think there's got to be.
It's also crazy as well, because you can tell how weak they are on the topics. Hassan does this as well, where they do the Voldemort game. They don't want to name the person. They don't want to name the debate. Like, think about the talking points that these guys use, right? Like, you should be able to, it's up to you to watch, and it's up for you to evaluate. Like, you need to arrive at the truth. Like, you should be able to watch any 2 people and figure out what's going on. But for this, guys, listen, you don't want to watch that guy. And by the way, he's not even saying don't watch me, right? He's saying don't watch me talk to that guy. He's saying don't watch Constantine talk to him. So the conversation was so fucked. It's not even like you can't be trusted to watch my YouTube video on its own, which maybe, if the guy's a crazy propagandist, fine. You don't want to just watch a shit on it. You need somebody there to challenge him. Even Constantine challenging me is not worth watching. Holy shit.
Part of them that realizes there's a good argument that it's not true, especially when it comes to like transgender stuff or border stuff. There's certain things where like there's no real good faith argument that you should have an open border and allow fucking any psychopath to come across the border and invade your community. That seems crazy.
Like, it's so, like, the circle jerking is so boring. It is so typical of like weak-minded people. Like, he's talking about how, they can't even understand our positions, or nobody on the left. What did the guy, the puppet guy who never actually says anything but just smiles awkwardly next to Constantine? He's like, I wish there was a guy on the left who could actually take our positions and treat them seriously. And then Joe Rogan's like, can you believe these guys? They want psychopaths to come across the border and murder citizens. Yeah, bro. Like, yes. Like, who the fuck is open borders, right? Like, they said that for so long. Who the fuck is open borders? The whole Kamala meme was do not come. Do not come.
That seems crazy. Like if you understand anything about human nature and the nature of the world and the level of poverty and crime that exists outside of the United States, particularly in third world countries, we're just allowing
I thought you were
people-
talking about Canada there, Joe.
I'm all for them invading. They should come over. They should bail on their country until it gets better.
I just ask you because I would find it so hard to go on stage in front of, well, what is now hundreds of thousands of people by the time it goes on the internet, right? And just vigorously defend something I didn't believe.
Well, that's
What did I defend that I didn't believe, though? We didn't even get to talk about it because you have such a lack of understanding or grasp of literally any of the subject matter that you can't even have the conversation. And even when they go on these podcasts, they don't have the conversation. They vibe slop the whole fucking thing. They just speak in generalities and vagaries, and they don't really say anything. Just like the most base level talking points. Like, can you believe some people want little boys to chop their dicks off and then they think they're just like real girls? Can you believe that these people want murderers to run across the border and fucking murder everybody? And it's like, wow, what a great engagement with the other side, bro. You're so smart. I wish I understood human nature as well as you fucking do.
you're smart. And I think the problem is a lot of these people aren't really intelligent. What they are is a person who has a good vocabulary, who's acquired a certain amount of technique and skill involved in...
Holy cope! This guy's talking about me like I'm a fucking debate assassin. What the fuck? I have a certain set of skills that people like you will come to dread or whatever. Jesus.
Is a person who has a good vocabulary, who's acquired a certain amount of technique and skill involved in talking really fast and spouting things that they've seen online, that a bunch of narratives. Like one of the things that people love to do is if you're talking to anyone that's on the right, they want to say, you know, you support a 34-time convicted felon, and you know, there's a lot of things that they like to say. There's techniques involved instead of like discussing anybody that looked at the actual Trump case. If you're rational and you're on the left, you say that's a crazy case.
Bet my life and the life of every single person that is even 1% related to my bloodline, that if you were to ask Joe Rogan to explain the Trump New York State case, he wouldn't be able to do it, by the way. He absolutely wouldn't be able to do it. He'd have no fucking idea.
There's no way that should be a felony. It's not a felony. There are 34 different misdemeanors, and it's past the statute of limitations. This is the craziest, egregious misuse of justice. And the scary thing is, if someone on the
Why were they upgraded to felonies, though? Does he know why? I don't think so.
right gets in, they decide to do that to someone on the left.
And I don't think you could describe him at all. I don't think so. These are talking points that he's saying, by the way. What he's giving are talking points. They weren't even felonies. Like, these were supposed to be misdemeanors. Like, it was an artificial case. Like, he's giving, like, the narrativized talking points.
You got to put your foot down. Stop that from happening. The Russia stuff,
Right.
like all that stuff, the Russiagate stuff. Like that's kind of crazy that someone on the left doesn't call that out and say, "Hey guys, this is fucking dangerous." Because if you're lying and you're having intelligence agencies lie and you're having people lie on television and you're just accepting that, why? Because it's your side. They're supporting your side.
That's why.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's why. And I find that very strange because what they do is they pivot to that, which is not relevant to the conversation we're having.
Exactly.
We're talking about, is it right to do these strikes on Iran, or is it this, or is it that? What's the situation in the Middle East, or whatever? How does bringing up Trump's convictions or otherwise change that? It doesn't affect that
At all.
conversation.
Yeah. At
Or
all.
the border, or the trans thing, or any of the other things.
No.
And that's the thing is, like, can we just argue the fucking point?
Well, I think at a certain point in time, you're going to have to choose real opponents. It's like the Jake Paul thing.
But see, I want the
Who are your real opponents, though? Like, if not me, dude, I'm willing to meet in the middle on more than probably any other crazy lefty person. I'm probably the only person, large category on the left, that actively fights with so many other left-leaning people. Not the only one, that's not fair to say. But, like, I'm one of the only who's willing to fight with so many of these people. Like, my positions on most of these topics, I think, would be fairly reasonable. I'm not going to have a crazy position on immigration or a crazy position on trans people or crazy positions on taxation or welfare. And if you can't even engage with me on the subject matter, who the fuck are you looking for?
real opponents.
Right,
But
but
where are they? Where are they?
Right, that
And
is
we've
the
had
problem.
people on the show where it's like we had this woman from the Guilty Feminist podcast, and she came on and we gave her 40
A woman from the Guilty Feminist podcast. That's who? Okay.
minutes. She basically laid out her whole vision. And it was respectful and polite, and it was a great conversation, actually. The moment I said, well, you've been speaking for this time, here's some of the things that I see that don't make sense in my head, can you help me out? Immediately goes personal. Immediately.
Yeah.
And that's what Francis is saying. Like, I'd love to see people who have an ability to argue the point.
Yeah.
And that's what Dave does. He
Right.
argues the point, and that's either persuasive to you or...
What? I could have killed this guy. I was staring at him the whole time.
Well, I think the problem is their point is not very good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that is the problem.
Yeah,
And
so you
that's-
have to go personal. You have to attack people. You have to use ad hominems. It's the only way you can get anything off. And then you can try to get that person emotional and trap them.
So why don't they change their opinion then?
Unless you count me saying that I think he's a Republican personal. I'm pretty sure he was the first one to do a personal attack on me. I'm pretty sure he was, but... Okay.
It's a good question, because if you're ideologically captured, especially if you're on the left, like it's a very clear ideology and there's like real blowback for deviating from it.
Yeah.
As we know, right?
Yeah.
Because the moment you say, well, you're no longer on the left anymore.
Right.
I do want to say that it's funny that 10 years ago, every single time I would fucking debate, assassinate one of these loser fuck conservatives, they would all run to their little cope sessions. It's funny to see these people doing it on the largest podcast in the world. I will say that. That's pretty funny. Absolute fucking clown.
Yeah.
Right.
You
Well, a
know.
lot of people have been kicked out of it.
Yeah.
A lot of people have been pushed into some weird quasi
Yeah.
homeless land.
Well, that's how we all ended up as like right wing. It was like, fuck off with this shit.
Yeah, fuck off with the shit.
Yeah.
You know, 20 years ago, all the stuff that we talk about, it wasn't just like not right wing. No one questioned. Do you remember 25 years ago, people running around going, "We need an open border"?
Who says that now? Who says that? Who has that position? What are we talking about?
Right.
Or like
Right.
you can change your sex by just going like abracadabra.
Right.
No one said that.
Right.
And so we went right wing for
Yeah.
like going, that's crazy.
I know.
You know, the most bizarre thing is watching all these kind of left-wing lesbian feminists can be described as right-wing and get kicked out.
J.K. Rowling and that's
Martina Navratilova.
Fuck my
Yeah,
life.
there's a journalist called Julie Bindel, used to write The Guardian, one of the most left-wing journalists, and she's lesbian, and she criticised, like, and she was like the trans movement. That was it, get out the door. Doesn't matter what you've done before. It doesn't matter you've done all this incredible work with women in female prisons.
Well, it's because it's a cult. I mean, it's essentially like a religious
Yeah,
ideology.
tell
like
us about cults.
They will not take any heretics, like anybody that deviates from whatever their doctrine is. Like you're out.
Oh,
You're out
really?
forever, and that scares people. So that's one of the reasons why they're willing to comply and follow some of this goofy shit and say no one's illegal on stolen land.
Yeah.
What's interesting is it doesn't happen on the right nearly the same way. Like you can see it.
How can you say this shit with a straight face? Like, there was a Joe Rogan episode where he has one conspiracy theorist on that is consoling another conspiracy theorist about his conspiracy theory, and both of them are schizos. Like,
In the center,
Like,
you're
this
going
shit
to get
is
one of his
crazy.
curvilinear octahedral structures.
like
Interact.
both of these men think they have solved like the whole physics unification of the universe. They have two totally different theories. They both have reasons why all of academia and the deep states are pushing against them, and they're both consoling each other
And-
about their shit. What the fuck? Like, if that's not the definition of a cult, what the fuck?
Now the right is engaged in a fierce debate internally. And the people fucking argue and they hash it out and then they go have a beer afterwards.
I think they're
Yeah,
doing.
you're engaged in a fierce debate because you guys were such a fucking cult. You guys were such a cult that had no principles behind any of the shit you argue about at all. And now it's all flying apart at the fucking seams because the president of peace renamed the Department of Defense the Department of War. You said that that was a troll like every other fucking thing in the world. And now we're at war with Iran for the second time in 2 years.
And it just the same way.
Just the same?
I think it's a I think it's a human thing. Yeah, I think there's people on the right that do it just the same way. There's people that call people out for not being MAGA enough, you know?
Yeah.
It's just like right now the whole thing's in turmoil, whereas there's not really the same kind of turmoil on the left where there's internal debate. The turmoil on the left is the left.
There's no internal debate on the like. This is like unhealthy. Like, this is unhealthy levels of delusion. I think Jesus.
versus the right.
Yeah.
The turmoil on the right now, I think there's a lot of people right versus right, and they're trying to find out, like, and I think there's a lot of people that they don't believe what they're saying either. They're just trying to find a thing that aligns with the biggest audience.
I think that's definitely happening. I also think, though, internal debate within a big, broad church movement is a good thing because what you're arguing about is like, what is the right direction?
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
And I do think that is more healthy.
Yeah.
I think working out what it is that like, whatever, if you're on the right, we believe. As I'm not on the right, but as I see that, I do think that's a healthy thing to do because you're arguing about the direction of that movement.
Yeah.
And I think that's much healthier than what happens on the left, where it's just like, well, if you don't agree with this wacky idea that's far, far out there, then you're no longer part of this.
But I think the good thing about these debates is it exposes that. And anybody who's objective, especially anybody that is, you know, a swing voter or anybody who's in the middle of all this, which is a lot of people.
Most people, I
yeah,
think, right?
Yeah. Most people are kind of in the middle on most political issues. They get to see how crazy some of this shit is, and it makes them less likely to follow.
You know, but it's also as well from a neutral perspective. And I mentioned the point about I want a strong left. I want a strong left which has got good ideas about how to tackle things which are really important, like inequality, like cost of living. How do we make it that people can actually have a better standard of life? Where if a woman wants to stay at home with her kids, she can do that. Which they're not then have to go out and have to work and put the kids in daycare, which then leads to a whole host of problems. How can we have a better world for ordinary people, which is what the left always used to be?
Yeah.
We need a strong left to then challenge the right so that the centre becomes a more fertile ground. And if we don't have that, if we have these crazy loons on the left, then what we have is a right which will come to dominate, which I don't think is good for society as a whole. I'm going to be honest with you.
No, it's never good.
A right which will come to dominate? Which will? What, they're not here already?
One
you know it's a democratic
party,
shutdown.
left or right, is completely dominant. It's not good.
You know, you need checks,
Yeah.
right? And you know, the right has its share of crazies too, as we've been talking.
100%. Praise Jesus. All right, we gotta wrap this up, gentlemen. I love you guys.
Very quickly.
Oh, your book?
Yeah, I've got a book. It's out
called "Uneducated: My Life as a Teacher and Why You Should Never Become One," and never is in bold.
An inspiring story.
Francis Foster. All right, I love you guys. Always great to see you.
Thank you very much, man.
Bye, everybody.
Apparently they complain about something here.
Right.
It was so refreshing. Last time we came here, we had Dave Smith on our
Oh wait, this was like a few minutes earlier. What?
show. I don't know
Yeah.
if you saw that one.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
So refreshing.
We loved
Dave
it.
Smith
It was
on.
great.
We loved it. And Dave enjoyed it. And
Dave Smith, by the way, who has now completely walked back on his Trump support, who has said that Kamala Harris would have been a better president. Crazy how with all his politicking, as ingenious as this guy is, reads more books than anybody ever knows, smartest guy I know, CIA op, is now just somehow realized, the Trump shit, not that good actually. The Trump shit, not Kino. The Trump shit actually, kinda bad. Wow, welcome to 5 years ago when everybody realized this, you fucking moron.
And, you know, it was weird because we obviously have lots of different perspectives on things, but afterwards a lot of people were like, oh, I can't believe you had Dave on. And I said to all of them, listen, Dave's only crime...
Do people like this even gain anything by claiming they're not on the right? Is it just so they can have friends say, I don't only have right-wing people, I have this kind of... No, because there is an aesthetic of being neutral. There's an aesthetic of neutrality, of I'm not on the right or the left. I'm superior to both. I consider both sides.
is that he has a different opinion to you. Because apart from that, he comes in, he shows up, he's super nice, he's respectful, he's polite, he doesn't do any dirty tricks.
Right.
He doesn't argue about the definitions of words that for 10 minutes, right? He just goes, here's my opinion, here's your opinion,
He's so ass-pained.
let's discuss.
Yeah.
And that's how conversations should happen.
Like this weird bastardization of conversation that these weak fucking losers are jerking off, that a conversation, like what they're talking about is definitionally not a conversation. They want one side to say a bunch of things and then the other side to say a bunch of things. And you don't actually engage back and forth with anything their side is saying. It's just both sides make a statement and then over and over and over again until you guys have kind of like cummed in each other's mouths over and over again, and then you're done and then you go on to the next thing.
Right.
But so much of the debate stuff now is not, people aren't discussing the issues. They've just like decided you're a bad person.
Right.
And that's what they're trying to achieve. They're trying to get a cheap laugh from the audience that they're playing to who's not even in the room, because they know their retard followers are going to watch it online afterwards and be like, oh, he owned him. But where did we get to?
Well, it's just, it's just some people that are doing that, and those people, that's all they can do. That's why they do it that way.
Right.
If they were really intellectually compelling, and if they were like smart people, like I don't want enemies. Like if I can have a sane, rational, peaceful discussion with someone where we disagree with something, I would greatly prefer that.
Yeah.
Than have someone who's insulting me and I'm insulting them. We're trying to like get off on each other. Like why?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have things to do. Like I don't need.
You're busy, you have things to do. Motherfucker, this is your job. What are you talking about? What do you mean? This is what you do. What?
That kind of bullshit in my life, and I don't mind when someone disagrees with me. I think it's healthy. And I also want to know why you think the way you think, genuinely.
Do you regret going baby mode on him at the end because he started arguing with people in the audience? I think I had an appropriate level of pressing him. Maybe I could have gone slightly a smidge harder, but I think it was fine. He got to... There's enough footage of him just sitting there with his legs crossed and the mic in his lap and him being a little baby. I think it was an appropriate level of pressure.
Right.
You know what, I see it as an opportunity as like, because we all have blind spots.
Yeah.
We all have blind spots. We all have biases. I don't care who you are, how smart you are. You have biases. You
Not
have
me.
blind spots. Not me, mate. I know everything.
Yeah.
But when someone goes, well, actually, Francis, you say this, but what about this? Have you
Right.
thought about this? Have you read about this? I'm like, no.
Right.
And it's like, well, maybe you should.
Right.
And maybe you actually, maybe won't change your opinion, but certainly have a more nuanced opinion.
Nuanced.
Yeah.
Nuanced.
But also, we're talking about
They
shit.
use this word nuanced as well as a stand-in for to have it so nobody is right or wrong. Like they talk about nuance, but what they really mean is I just don't want to have like a definitive answer at the end of this conversation for who was actually correct and incorrect. Why are people dying out there?
that actually matters. Mm-hmm. And it deserves to be taken seriously.
Yeah. Well, the answer is
Okay. That's where we were. Okay. Then we had this guy. 4
From
days
the President,
ago.
Mr. Secretary, thank you very much for being here.
David, good to be with you.
We've heard from the President, Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs. I'm curious at this point, what your understanding is of the case this administration has made for the U.S. going to war against Iran.
Well, look, the case keeps shifting, but the first thing to say is this, from my perspective. Once our men and women in uniform are engaged in an operation or in a war, my first thought is for their safety and for their success, irrespective of what I think about how we got there or even where this is going. So that's primarily what I'm thinking of. But having said that, we've heard a number of shifting rationales. But I think it's important to take into account that we've got to be able to hold multiple truths in our head at the same time. Is it a good thing that this Ayatollah is gone? Yes. Terrible tyrant. Is it a good thing, potentially at least, that Iran's nuclear program is, I guess, re-obliterated, because apparently it was obliterated last June, but maybe not so much because they had to re-obliterate it. Or its missile program diminished, or its Navy sunk? Yes. But to do that and to take on the extraordinary risks that go with it, without having made the case with the American people, with citing imminent threats that apparently didn't exist, I think that's problematic. And
Do you want me to pull it? Oh, he's pulling it.
the chances of unintended consequences taking hold in any situation like this are very real, very serious for our partners and allies in the region, and for ourselves, and of course for the Iranian people. I think a big question that everyone has is, okay, have we done regime change in Iran or just Ayatollah change, which is the way it looks right now?
You brought up the argument that there was an imminent threat. In years past, you'd warned that there were a matter of weeks before Iran could develop fissile uranium. Is that an argument that's persuasive to you, so much as that's been made by the administration, that there was an imminent threat?
It's an ironic argument in a number of ways. First, as I said, they claim to have obliterated the nuclear fissile material program back in June. And now we're told, actually, no, we didn't. And a number of us warned at the time that one of the reasons why military action against the nuclear program might not do the trick is that the Iranians were likely to start to rebuild, maybe rebuild deeper underground, where we couldn't get at it. Whether that was happening or to what extent, I don't know, because I'm not privy to that information, but at least that seems to be part of the rationale. The deeper irony, of course, is that we never should have been in this position insofar as the agreement that President Obama reached, the Iran nuclear deal, the so-called JCPOA, put Iran's nuclear program in a box. It made sure that Iran could not produce the fissile material needed for a nuclear weapon in less than a year. And so if they chose to break out of the box and go for that, we'd see it, and we'd have plenty of time to be able to do something about it. President Trump tore up that agreement, said he'd replace it with something better. He never did. Wait. And that's the road that we then wound up on that led to, in some ways, to where we are today with Iran, yes, dramatically advancing its production of fissile material so that that breakout time moved from 1 year to a couple of weeks. But you don't only need fissile material, you actually need a weapon, too. And I think, as has been publicly reported, our intelligence agencies and others, the IAEA, continue to conclude that Iran has not made a decision to actually weaponize. If and when they do, or if and when they did, most estimates had that timeline at a couple of years. There are different kinds of weapons, less sophisticated ones you could build on a quicker timeline. But the bottom line is that on the nuclear side, there was no imminent threat. There was, though, the fact that, yes, in terms of fissile material production, they'd gone from the Obama deal, more than a year, to a few weeks.
The Supreme Leader, who's been killed, of course, warned in the run-up to this that if there were U.S. strikes, the U.S. risked a wider regional war. How has what's played out over these last few days, how does that compare to what you expected would happen here? I imagine in your old jobs, there were planning meetings and war games in which you kind of try to figure out what might happen here. As we see this war widen, is that in keeping with what you expected when you heard the Supreme Leader warn of that? Well,
look, it's certainly something that should have been anticipated. And what's one of the striking features so far is that Iran has launched far more missiles and far more drones at the Arab countries in the Gulf and in the region than it has even at Israel, disproportionately so. And in part, that's because we have bases and presence there, but they've gone beyond that. They've gone at infrastructure that these countries have, the oil infrastructure. They want to try to inflict so much pain that we can't sustain the effort. And that's something that should have been anticipated. And David, I think we're looking at a couple of things going forward in terms of where does this go and how does this end. And it seems to me that there are two critical factors to look at. Markets and munitions. Markets. Where are the oil markets? Where's the stock market? Where's the bond market? I know President Trump is very attentive to those. And if they go in a southerly direction and stay that way, or in the case of oil in a northerly direction, that's going to be possibly a limiting factor. Then munitions. There's really a race on to figure out who expends their munitions first and fastest. The Iranians put us in a position where we've used up a lot of interceptors to deal with defense, or even our offensive missiles to take out their launchers, or conversely, did they run out and we still have what we need? I don't know the numbers here. I'm not privy to that, but it is something we have to be very, very attentive to because these things are not in infinite supply. The production times are very long, and of course, we're also using in many cases, very expensive weapons to take down $20,000 drones. That's not a good equation if you keep that going over time. What I'm worried about, one of the things I'm worried about, and this gets to the second and third order consequences, is we so deplete our arsenal, and it takes a long time to rebuild it, that puts us in a disadvantageous position when it comes to, say, a China or a Russia. All of those things need to be factored in, and again, it's one of the reasons why if you're going to undertake something like this, you've got to make sure that you've factored all of that in. And again, it really should start with explaining to the American people why you're doing something, why it's necessary, why now.
Do you see an off-ramp anywhere at this point?
I do, in the sense that, one, as I said, I think the off-ramp will be governed by this question of munitions and markets. Mm-hmm. And then what is that off-ramp? I think the president may simply declare victory. He'll say, got rid of the Ayatollah. We diminished or degraded or destroyed their nuclear program. Again, we did the same thing to the missile program. We did the same thing to the Navy. And as to the regime, well, over to the Iranian people. Good luck to them. Hope they succeed. And if they don't, it's their fault. If they do, we'll take the credit. How Iran responds to that remains to be seen. And for the regime, survival is success. Right now, the expectation seems to be, at least as has been reported, that the Ayatollah's son is his successor. He's very tied into the IRGC. And so you may have a situation where, much as we want, and everyone should want to see a change in that regime, we have, regime change without regime change.
Status quo.
Status quo, and even potentially even worse, because it may simply ultimately reinforce the IRGC, the military, the specialized military. And part of the problem with these things is that it's very hard to produce regime change from outside. You can't bomb your way to it. We've had a lot of experience with that, and not such good experience over the last 20 years. It's even not so likely to come from the streets, even with the extraordinarily courageous Iranian people. It's more likely to come from kind of within the palace. And then it could go in any one of multiple directions. You could get more pragmatic people, not good guys, but more pragmatic people who are open to curbing the excesses of the regime, focusing at home instead of focusing abroad, doing deals. But right now it looks more likely that you're going to have hardliners. And the Who had a song way back in the 60s or 70s, here's to the new boss, same as the old boss. That seems to be, right now at least, where we're headed.
You've warned of the dangers of U.S. intervention many times. In 2024, you spoke at the Council on Foreign Relations. You said, effectively, I think if we look at the last 20 years, our experiments in regime change have not exactly been resounding successes. CNN is reporting that the U.S. is considering arming the Kurds.
Yeah.
In Iran, Bloomberg hasn't confirmed that reporting. When you hear that, what red flags does that raise for you?
Oh, the red flag it raises is this could be Syria redux, or it could be Libya redux. You could see the country fracturing, imploding, or even exploding with refugees and migration, with the exporting of some of their problems, with extremist groups taking hold in one part or another. It's incredibly fraught and incredibly dangerous. And as sympathetic as I am to the Kurds, who've been incredible partners for us, are incredibly brave, I don't think that getting into the business of arming these groups is ultimately going to be a good thing. And then you're going to have other countries that pick their partners inside, and again, you wind up with something like Syria, something like Libya.
Let's talk a bit about diplomacy. The president posted on Truth Social, they want to talk, referring to the Iranians. I said too late.
Yeah.
Is it too late for there to be a diplomatic solution or to have those conversations at this point?
No, I think it's never too late for diplomacy. The question is there a good moment? Is this the right moment for it? I would hope so, because on one level, the Iranians have never been weaker, at least not in recent memory, militarily, politically at home, diplomatically abroad. And their proxies are for the most part gone or vastly diminished. So that's why I was hopeful before this action started that maybe they actually would get a renewed nuclear deal, because Iran had a very weak hand to play. So I think there is a possibility of doing that. Whether whatever the new regime is, or the continuation of the existing regime is ready to do that, wants to do that, to be determined. It also depends on what the Trump administration wants to do, and I imagine Israel is going to have a say in this as well.
As the administration was marshaling all of this military might to the Middle East, you had Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law, Steve Witkoff, his longtime friend, now envoy to many conflicts and regions, meeting in Geneva, in meetings mediated by the Omanis. Do you think that those were good faith conversations when you look at it now in hindsight?
Look, I can't. It's hard for me to tell, not being in the room, not being privy to those conversations. I certainly want to believe so. I don't know, as I think Jared Kushner, Steve Witkoff are very able negotiators, but it was not clear to me that the expertise was also with them, which is very necessary when you're dealing with nuclear matters. When we did the JCPOA, we had very senior diplomats, but we had tremendous technical expertise at hand, because it's complicated stuff, and you want to make sure you're not making a mistake. So I'm not sure who was actually in the
Is he implying that Steve Witkoff himself can't solo handle these negotiations? Excuse me.
room, and whether the people in the room could fully evaluate and assess, is this a good deal, is this a bad deal? And I've heard different versions of what the Iranians were actually willing to do, not willing to do, different versions of what we were willing to do or not willing to do. Not being there, it's hard to tell. But, David, when President Trump tore up the JCPOA back in the day, first term, he said he wanted to replace it with a better deal. And I think there was actually an opportunity to do that because Iran was in so much of a weaker position now than it was back when President Obama negotiated the deal.
You, of course, are a professional diplomat. You've dealt with the Iranians directly. And I'm curious if you think that
Wait.
And your vice president when it comes to U.S. action in Iran?
I don't think so, no. No, we get along very well on this. He was, I would say, philosophically a little bit different than me. I think he was maybe less enthusiastic about going, but he was quite enthusiastic. But I felt it was something we had to do. I didn't feel we had a choice. If we didn't do it, they would have done it to us. I felt, based on the negotiations that were being had by Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner and Marco and Pete and everybody was involved, I felt that they were looking to tap us along before they hit, and I thought they were going to hit. And if they hit us first, that would have been a very bad thing.
Like, really? Iran's like, we're going to get the U.S. on one big strike?
Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner were at some sort of inherent disadvantage in those talks because you had professional diplomats on one side and they were on the other. This isn't what they've done their entire lives.
Look, a number of the Iranians have been doing this for a long time, and when we change administrations, we change out the people who are doing these issues, and there's a certain learning curve, and you have to get up to speed and become genuinely expert in things. Again, that's why I think it's so important to make sure that you have the experts with you, because they're the continuity. The Iranians have continuity because it's usually the same cast of characters, the same guys that have been doing this for a long time. Aranchi, the foreign minister, was Zarif's, the then foreign minister's deputy back then, so he knows what he's doing.
You've noted in the past that during war games, something's come up where if there were to be this kind of chaos in Iran, the regime might move uranium to different places across the country. And going back to what you were talking about a moment ago, the prospects of there being a Libya-esque or Syria-esque civil war, how worried should we be about that nuclear material being effectively scattered across this country and there being next to no accountability for A, where it is, and B, into whose hands it falls?
Yeah, I think that's a real concern. I would assume that the remaining material, and again, I don't know, we've seen lots of reports that it's likely that they were able to preserve, safeguard a lot of uranium, but I don't know that for a fact. I would assume that they've tried to disperse it, as you said, presumably in places that the regime has some control over, but if a country winds up in some kind of civil war, yeah, that's a real concern, and something that we have to factor into our thinking. If we're going to start dropping matches there in terms of arming various groups, we better watch out in terms of getting what we wish for. But, I'm of course...
Okay.
You've seen extraordinarily courageous people, beyond imagination, who are out in the streets looking for change, getting mowed down by this regime, and we all want to see a different future for them, different leadership for them. But
getting
it's
mowed
very,
down,
very
like
hard,
run
if
over
not
by
impossible,
cars?
Is
that what he
to do
means?
that from the outside, as we were saying. And the risks now are that instead of having a change, having a transition, you have an implosion, and then maybe even an explosion that has real
This
effect.
moving camera is annoying as fuck. I don't know which podcaster person started it. I think it looks horrible, and everybody's obsessed with it now. They all need these fucking $5,000 whatever tracks that the camera moves back. I don't know what the fuck the point is. I don't know what you're supposed to gain or get from it.
Outside the country, our partners in the region have far fewer interceptors, air defense interceptors, than we do. If it gets to the point where they're running out and the Iranians have enough to continue going at their infrastructure, at their people, I think there's going to be a pretty strong demand signal on the administration to take an off-ramp, to stop. We've had other second and third order consequences here. At the very time when Russia is really reaching a weak point, because of its dependence on oil to fuel its war economy, in large part because the price of oil has gone down. It's having more trouble exploiting oil because of sanctions and restrictions that we put on technology. That's been a huge and growing factor. And the thing to do now, ideally, would be to squeeze the shadow fleet that they have that's going around the world, and that's the one thing that's able to keep them going. At the very time when that's possible, and that might force Putin to finally cut a deal on Ukraine, they get a lifeline, and the lifeline is the price of oil is going up, and the value of that shadow fleet oil is going up, and people will need it and want to buy it. The Europeans, in turn, having moved away from Russian gas, are now more dependent on the Middle East. And if that gets tied up, if the Straits of Hormuz remain problematic, that's going to put a lot of pressure on them. So mapping out, gaming out, planning out, and then making sure you have something in place to deal with all of these second and third order effects, usually important, and it's not at all clear to me that was done.
From where we sit today, are you confident that the U.S. can extricate itself from this without putting boots on the ground in Iran?
It depends what the objective is. I think that, yes, in short,
We can always just say
as
fuck
I
it
said
and leave.
a moment ago,
It's like, who cares?
the president could theoretically declare victory tomorrow and
Yeah.
claim that severe damage was done to the regime, to the missiles, to the nuclear program, to the Navy, and say and call it a day. But then, for what? Most of that stuff ultimately can be rebuilt, and absent a change in the governance in the regime, which right now, in this moment, doesn't seem to be forthcoming. Huge risk. Without the support of without in effect, the buy-in from the American people, that leaves us actually potentially for some time in a strategically weakened position with regard, for example, to China or Russia, because our own stockpiles of critical long-range precision-guided weapons are down. Our air defense stockpile interceptors is down. That's hugely questionable. But I think that is an off-ramp that's available to the president if he wants to take it.
As you've pointed out, President Trump pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal during his first term. When you were Secretary of State, there was an effort to reanimate that, to get another iteration of it. What were the challenges of that, and why was it the case that in 2022 those talks?
What?
Who was he Secretary of State for?
Wait, I thought it was a. Oh no, wait. Was it the second term? Or, hold on.
Biden.
No. Yes, first Biden, only Biden term. Okay.
Broke down.
And
Look,
Obama.
we tried.
Second Obama term, right? Because Hillary was first, I believe.
Very hard to get back to the deal, but at that point in time, and especially with the passage of time, there
Who
were
was
two.
the second? No, Biden, and he's a long time Biden as well. Who was the second? Wasn't Oh no, Kerry was Obama's secretary. That's right. Sorry.
Things that were critical. One was that, of course, the Iranians, not without reason, said, "How can we trust anything? We can do a deal, and then maybe the President Biden's successor does exactly what President Trump does." So there was a limiting factor there. But the bigger limiting factor was getting the Iranians to agree to terms that we deemed necessary and sufficient to make the deal the right deal to do, and in particular, re-extending the timelines, the constraints that the original deal had in them on the nuclear program. We couldn't get to where we thought we needed to be to make it worthwhile, and we were doing it in partnership, in very close partnership, with our European friends and allies, with the French, with the British, with the Germans, with the European Union. Something that hadn't been the case in the immediate previous years. And I think we all agreed that the deal that the Iranians were willing to sign on to was simply not adequate. I wish we could have gotten there, but more than that, I wish that President Trump had not torn up the original deal. We'd be in a very different position and a very different world.
I want to ask you about something that your successor said this week. Secretary of State Marco Rubio was talking about the motivations for this war. He said Israel was planning attacks that could lead to reprisals on American troops, so the U.S. had to get involved militarily. He since walked that back a bit. But what does that say to you about the relationship between the U.S. and Israel and the influence that the U.S. has over Israeli policy?
Look, this has been a long story when it comes to Iran. And back during the Obama administration, the Israelis were pushing President Obama to take military action against Iran, and were warning that they would do it themselves if he didn't. And he wouldn't, because he thought the better way to get at the nuclear program, which is what we were focused on, was through very muscular diplomacy backed up by very, very strong sanctions that we rallied the world to put in place. And then we got the Iran nuclear agreement. In the days after the October 7th attack on Israel, the horrific attack on Israel by Hamas, the Israelis were insisting that in the north, Hezbollah from Lebanon was about to attack, and they wanted to strike preemptively against Hezbollah. And President Biden said, "Look, we're with you. We'll always be with you in defending Israel. And if you're attacked, we're there. But we're not there if you're going to start something." And we came within about 30 minutes of having a war in the north based on bad information that the Israelis had about an imminent attack from Hezbollah. We were able to avert that, but Biden was very insistent. We're not going to do something that you initiate, that you start. It's very different than defending Israel when it's been attacked. I can't speak to what the dynamic was this time. I heard that, then it was walked back. The president said it was the other way around. There's been a shifting rationale, a shifting explanation for why this, why now. And again, that's why it's so important to have ideally laid this out before the American people and our partners and allies. We might have had less friction with them if there was a compelling case to be made, to make sure that we laid that out in advance and had them with us on the takeoff.
This guy's a DGG.
Not mid-flight or on the landing.
You have faced protesters when you've given speeches. I remember there was an interruption in the press briefing room at the State Department when you were giving remarks. And the criticism you faced has been you and the administration, the Biden administration, effectively gave cover to Israel and Prime Minister Netanyahu for them to prosecute the war that they prosecuted in Gaza that led to 75,000 people dying. In hindsight, do you regret not exerting more pressure on or trying to do more to constrain, yes, Israel, but principally the Prime Minister in that war?
Look, David, when there's been such terrible loss, such terrible suffering, when so many innocent people, Palestinian men, women, and children, lost their lives, you're always going to ask yourself, I always ask myself, could we, should we have done something different? And we had to make judgments in the moment to try to achieve a number of objectives. And in a way, I should really start with where we ended, which is we ended with a ceasewire that we handed off to the Trump administration. We ended with the hostages coming out, prisoners being released from Israeli jails, tens of thousands of trucks going into Gaza.
I see that as a mutual achievement between the Biden and the Trump.
Well, I think it was largely President Biden's, but I'm very thankful for the role that Steve Witkoff in particular played in supporting that in the moment, and that's what we were able to hand off. And then in that agreement, in the ceasefire agreement, it was for 6 weeks, and during those 6 weeks, the notion was that the parties would negotiate the terms of an enduring ceasefire. That didn't happen. They went back to war, and then finally, President Trump, 8 or 9 months later, landed this the current ceasefire. But do I wish that we could have gotten that sooner with less suffering? Absolutely. But there were a lot of things that were going on that we had to factor in. One was we were trying, obviously, to make sure that October 7th could never happen again. And October 7th was almost written off immediately by much of the world, starting practically on October 8th. And you had a traumatized Israeli society. And then now you've had a traumatized Palestinian broader society from October 8th on. But we wanted to make sure that couldn't happen again. We wanted to avert a wider war, which would have caused even more death, destruction, and suffering, and probably would have prolonged Gaza even more. And so that meant making sure, among other things, that there was a strong deterrent in place, including Israel's deterrent, to say to would-be aggressors who were prepared to jump in, pile in, because they thought Israel was down, if not out, Hezbollah, Iran, the Houthis, etc., don't do it. And so we had to preserve Israel's deterrent. We thought the best way to end this was through the deal that we ultimately got, the ceasefire and hostage deal. But part of the challenge was that Hamas was constantly strong-arming things because of two factors. One, you thought the cavalry was eventually going to come to the rescue, the Iranians, Hezbollah, etc. And until it was clear, and that didn't happen until really September of 2024, with the death of Nasrallah, with other leaders who were taken out by the Israelis, with the decimation, if not, or diminishment at least of Hezbollah itself, that wasn't clear till then, and that notion of the cavalry coming to the rescue was still there. The second thing that was really problematic was that, and we know this from all the information we had, Hamas was looking for any gaps between us and Israel and Israel's other supporters. And as soon as they saw something emerge, they would step back. So in public, it was critical that we preserve as much solidarity as possible, even as in private. We were hammering them every single day on humanitarian assistance for Palestinian people, on civilian casualties. And of course, they were operating in a unique environment where Hamas was hiding among and below all of the civilian infrastructure and civilians themselves in schools and mosques and hospitals. That doesn't excuse some of the actions that Israel took in trying to get at Hamas, not at Palestinians, but it is necessary to understand that was part of the environment. I also think at the end of the day, this is just my judgment, and I may be wrong, that this was perceived in Israel among the vast majority of the population, not just Prime Minister Netanyahu, people in his government, but the vast majority of the
I could have wasted that, dude.
population, including many who don't like him at all, to be an existential matter. And irrespective of what we did or anyone else did, they were likely to continue with or without us. So for us, it was how do we bring this to an end as quickly and effectively as possible? Again, making sure that it's not likely to happen again, averting a wider war, and all the while trying to look out for people who are caught in this horrific crossfire.
Is it wrong to look at this as a continuum that Prime Minister Netanyahu was able to prosecute the war in the way in which he wanted? That led him to feel emboldened enough to take these strikes in concert with the United States.
Certainly, there's a profound connection there, because I think in the past he has probably been reluctant to go at Iran directly because of the threat of retaliation or response from Hezbollah. But with Hezbollah vastly diminished, even though they did respond, not in such a significant way. And by the way, something truly remarkable: the president, the prime minister of Lebanon, denounced Hezbollah for getting into this and firing at Israel. That's remarkable. But for sure, I think the Israelis, yes, were in a position where something they hesitated to do in the past, that is direct confrontation. The president, the prime minister of Lebanon, denounced Hezbollah for getting into this and firing at Israel. That's remarkable. But for sure, I think the Israelis, yes, were in a position where something they hesitated to do in the past, that is direct confrontation with Iran, because of the likelihood that others would get in and go at them, that was taken away. And that did open the door to them doing what they've done.
I want to wrap up with where this leaves us, where this leaves the world. And Prime Minister Mark Carney of Canada spoke recently, and he said this is just another example of what he's talked about before, this rupture in the global order. That's happened on two counts here. There have been two failures. The first of which was the multilateral institutions that we've relied on weren't able to constrain Iran effectively. That's one. The second is you have the U.S. and Israel now going it together without the consent of the UN or other multilateral institutions. Do you agree with him as he talks about the way that hegemony, the global order, has changed?
Look, we're very much at an inflection point in the global order, in the rules-based order that we spent 80 years building up, and that was premised on one, I think, profound insight, and that was enlightened self-interest, the notion that the success and strength of others would be our own as well. And we were able to build a system that avoided other countries ganging up against us, as is usually the case when one country rises above the others. We had new markets for all the stuff we wanted to sell. We had new partners to deal with different conflicts, different problems. We had new allies to deter aggression, especially with NATO. And now that system is being put in for now at least, in the dustbin and being replaced with, there are different versions of this. Some people believe that the president's engaged in going back to a kind of spheres of influence world where the Russians do what they want in their part of the world, the Chinese do what they want, except maybe on the economic issues in their part, and we do what we want to do in our part, particularly in the Western Hemisphere. And then you've got these problematic areas that are dealt with by force. That's a profound thing, and that's what's happening now. But I think at the same time, and this is what's maybe most frustrating of all in the Middle East, is that there's also an extraordinary opportunity. If, very big if, this does produce some kind of real change in Iran, then you have the prospect of a region that heads in a very different direction, that is integrated with its people, it's moving back and forth, its economy is integrated, greater success, greater prosperity for folks. But there remains one catch to that vision besides how Iran resolves, and that's the question of Israelis and Palestinians. The truly big vision right now would be to actually resolve that question, not to try to put it under the rug yet again. The bottom line is this. There are roughly 7 million Jews in Israel. There are about 2 million Arabs, 5 million Palestinians between the West Bank and Gaza. No one is going anywhere, despite the efforts of some on both sides to make that happen. And so tell me how this ends. I don't see how this ends without some kind of genuine political accommodation that realizes the rights of Palestinians. This is the moment for that big vision, because that brings with it something incredibly powerful. Normalization of relations between Israel and Saudi Arabia, and then potentially other countries will follow suit, from Qatar to Indonesia. And then if the Iranian problem is diminished, and Iran really has to face a choice between being a pariah gadfly or mending its ways, I think that's the most likely way we're actually going to see real change. Unfortunately, tragically, given the trauma on all sides after October 7th, on the Israeli side and among Palestinians, it's awfully hard to get there. But that's where you need people of vision to try to move things in that direction. There is actually an opportunity to do that. I worry that opportunity will not be seized, and we're going to just see a continuation among Israelis and Palestinians. And also, Iran is again likely in this moment.
Your thoughts on Havana syndrome changed after watching 6 minutes? No, it's only stronger.
If I had to bet, again, we're replacing one Ayatollah for another, and the nature of the regime in this moment doesn't seem likely to change. I hope I'm pleasantly surprised, and the Iranians get the leadership that they deserve, but the jury's very much out on that.
Something you warned about during your tenure as Secretary of State was the role that China could play in subverting or reinventing the international order. How do you think about that now in this moment?
Well, nature abhors a vacuum. If we're disengaged, if we're not leading in the effort to shape that order, then China's going to fill the void. The flip side of that coin, David, is we've got to be doing it with allies and partners. We need, in all of these problem areas, to be working in concert. Whether it's dealing with the problems that China poses, we're much stronger when we're allied and partnered. We successfully align countries around the world in dealing with some of the challenges that China poses economically and on technology. When we're dealing with China alone, we're 20 or 25% of world GDP. When we're aligned with the Europeans, with Japan, Korea, India, we're suddenly 50 or 60%. That's a lot harder, bigger weight that China has to account for.
Last question is, what this war in Iran means for President Trump's other ambitions, be that Cuba, be that Greenland, continued project in Venezuela. How do you think about what this may or may not lead to?
Well, in some ways, Iran's the outlier, because these other areas that you just mentioned are all within what would be our so-called sphere of influence. And that's why I said, before, what we're seeing is at least is one of the shifts I think we're seeing is the president seems to see the world in terms of these spheres of influence, and anything within our sphere we should in one way or another control. And there's kind of a very 19th century view that actually controlling the territory is the most important thing. Never mind that there's absolutely no need to do that. I mean, in the case of Greenland, simply asking would have gotten the right answer in terms of putting more military forces there or striking deals on their raw materials. But that world, a spheres of influence world, where the big guys on the block, and it is guys in this view, get to do what they want in their area. That's the way things were for much of the latter part of the 19th century, but it didn't end well. We ultimately ended up with World War I. I'm equally concerned, David, with another alliance that's been shattered, and that's an internal alliance. When we started the 20th century, there was not a major pursuit of science in which the United States led the world. By the time we got to the 21st century, there was not a major pursuit in science and technology where the United States did not lead the world. That didn't happen by accident. It happened because we built an alliance between the federal government, universities, research institutions, national labs. The amount of GDP that we dedicated to research and development went from about 1.5% after World War II to, by the time President Biden left office, 3.5%. And that produced extraordinary innovation coupled with this welcome mat for the best and brightest from around the world, who would do their studies here, attracted by being with the best and brightest, and an open system. Then they stayed around and created things that made us a leader in all of these fields, which redounded to our economy and redounded to our national security. As that system is being blown up, I think that may be the biggest threat of all. If we lose that, we lose a lot.
Mr. Secretary, thank you very much.
Great to be with you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. All right, and then last one, our good friend, Jack Smith.
Welcome, everybody.
Welcome.
My name is David Wilkins. I'm the faculty director of the Center on the Legal Profession, and we are thrilled to have all of you here for a conversation between Professor Alex Whiting and Jack Smith. The Center on the Legal Profession, for those of you who don't know, does exactly what its name suggests. We study the profession that all of you, in one way or another, even if you don't practice law, will be joining. We do a series of empirical research
No, I'm not gonna do
projects.
it. Fuck,
We do
I could, though,
conferences.
but I won't.
And one of the most important things we do is we try to bring important speakers from a diverse range of backgrounds and viewpoints across the profession to come talk to you about their careers. So in our speaker series, we've had public servants like Brian Stevenson, Anne-Marie Slaughter. We've had leaders of the corporate bar like Kenneth Frazier, the former CEO of Merck, Brad Smith from Microsoft. We've had the Chief Justice of India, Viet Din, the former General Counsel of Fox News. We've had a whole range of speakers. And our goal is really to try to give you an opportunity to both see and engage with leading practitioners, many of whom have gone to this very law school.
Wow.
And that is not the only reason we're proud to have Jack here, but it is one. And I have to say, I'm particularly proud because I taught him civil procedure in 1991. And I'm even prouder he still speaks to me after I taught him civil procedure in 1991. So as I said, you're not here to see me or hear from me. So I'm just going to give a few basic ground rules I hope that you will all observe. Please no video or audio recordings. The event is scheduled to begin now and will end at 2 o'clock, I'm sorry. But we know that many people may have classes. I am not encouraging you to not go to your class. So if you have to go and get up at 1:15 or 1:20, please feel free to do so. There are QR codes, as you can see here, where you can submit questions. And obviously, we won't be able to get to all of them, but Alex has agreed to try to bring in some of the questions from the audience. And of course, most of all, and I really don't think I need to say this, but it's important, be respectful. One of the things that I know that Jack will talk about is the importance of respectful engagement as a kind of cornerstone of how he's tried to run his career and what he thinks is important for all of you. And it is certainly something that we here at Harvard Law School can try to model. So I hope everyone will engage in this important conversation in that spirit. With that, I just want to say a brief introduction to a man who needs no introduction. No, not you, Jack. Alex Whiting here. He's a legend in this community, as well as he should be, a career prosecutor who's worked in many important international forums, including most recently special counsel, the special counsel's office at the U.S. Department of Justice as an assistant special counsel. And he's also been the Kosovo special prosecutor in the office in The Hague. And he's a brilliant teacher and a Natalie dressed guy. As you can see, we all got the memo. We are the Blues Brothers. So I turn it over to you, Alex. Thank you.
Hold on. We've got supposedly a 10 out of 10 clip.
Don't you think your hyperbolic statements undermine your credibility?
What hyperbolic statement did I make?
On February the 11th, 2026, you posted on Bluesky, quote, my words, or your words, not mine. The Democrats' video telling service members to ignore illegal orders didn't go far enough. They should have also urged them to refuse unethical orders, whether illegal or not. There are many things deemed legal that are still obviously unethical, and everyone should hold themselves to this higher law, end quote. Did I read that correctly?
I believe you did. Do you disagree with it? You think people should do unethical things in their capacity?
On December the 31st of 2025, you posted in front of God.
But wait. Do you disagree with what I said?
Let me finish my
Let me
question.
reclaim my goddamn time.
Sure.
In front of God and country, you said, quote, they, referring to Republicans, think they can troll their way into us accepting ethnic cleansing, end quote. Your words, not mine. Did I read that correctly?
That was in regard to a Department of Homeland Security post about advocating 100 million deportations. That is what DHS has tweeted from their own account. 100 million deportations would be ethnic cleansing. You would be removing 1/3 of the country. So yes, there are people within the Department of Homeland Security.
And you don't think this is hyperbolic? Give me 30 more seconds.
I think advocating 100 million deportations is
I'm having fun here,
ethnic
Mr. Chairman.
cleansing.
On February 5th, You quoted you said the following on Bluesky.
Your time's up.
Bluesky.
These are all
Is
good,
this time really up?
but there's no enforcement mechanism. I'm sorry. Let me try a better one. On March 2nd,
no, he
you said,
laughed at him.
quote, if you rule against Trump's population purge agenda, no hyperbole there, the nativists will name you, threaten you, and come after you. These judges are much braver than the ICE agents who hide behind masks while violating the Constitution.
They are
Close
much braver.
quote.
They put their names on their rulings and they stand behind their constitutional rulings. When I talk about population purge, I'm talking about the fact that they're trying to deport U.S.-born citizens, people born here. They are trying to deport them as well. So it's not a mass deportation agenda. It is also an agenda intended to reduce the population of the United States, including U.S.-born people.
Thank you.
These are not hyperbolic statements. I appreciate you reading my account. I appreciate
Here's
your
the good
research.
need.
What planet did you just... Wait a minute, Mr. Chairman. What planet did you just parachute
No,
from?
no, no. Hey, guys.
You
Whose
trigger
committee is
my
this?
gag reflex, Mr. Beaver.
So
What? Why? Because you just
He wants to puke.
throat fucked you?
Thank you, David. Jack, welcome back to Harvard Law School.
Thank you very much. It's a very big honor to be here. And we were just talking earlier. My first class at Harvard Law School was Professor Wilkins' Civil Procedure. So it's really nice to be here and to come sort of full circle. So thank you for having me.
So Jack, a little more than a year ago, you left the special counsel's office in the Department of Justice. A few things have changed in that year. Do any of them concern you?
Yeah, so let me start where the perspective I come at that question from. I am not a political person. I'm a career prosecutor. I spent 30 years serving the public as a prosecutor in every sort of prosecutorial role you could manage, a local prosecutor, national, international. I worked in the Department of Justice, and I think this is relevant to a lot of what we'll talk about today. I worked in Republican, Democrat administrations over and over again. And I had leadership positions in Democratic and Republican administrations over and over again. I was the chief of the public integrity section, supervising corruption cases around the country during the Obama administration. But I was the chief of criminal litigation in Brooklyn in the Bush administration. And then in President Trump's first administration, I held two different high-level positions, both as the acting U.S. attorney in Nashville, as well as working with Alex overseas as a State Department appointee at an international war crimes tribunal. So I come at it from a perspective of someone who's seen administrations change. It's seen the department and the sort of traditions that we've had for years and really decades. And top line, what we are seeing today is not normal. It's not normal. This is not the usual changes you see when one party or one administration has different priorities. And it does concern me. It concerns me because I see the traditions of the department being set aside because particular outcomes are wanted. I see people being targeted because of their opposition to the president or because he perceives them as an enemy. And I also see cases not being investigated, not looked at because of a fear where an investigation would take them. I think for me personally, I think one of the biggest concerns, and I think one of the ones that we should all be thinking more about, because we see the headlines of individual cases and that concerns us. But for me, I think one of the bigger concerns is the vilification of public servants.
True.
The hiring and firing in the Justice Department, I believe, has not gotten enough public attention because we don't really understand the full costs of it. You have public servants who have served for decades in administrations of both parties who are vilified because they are adhering to the ideals about why they became a prosecutor. And then conversely, you have people being brought into the Justice Department who don't believe in those ideals at all.
They're absolutely fucking retarded, and they're sick of this.
There is an advisor to the current Attorney General who, on January 6th, 2021, was at the Capitol telling fellow rioters to kill police officers. It's on video.
Damn.
That person is now advising our Attorney General. And I think that says a lot about...
Wait, which person explicitly? Somebody linked this video. Wait. What? I don't know if I'm familiar with this particular thing.
Where we are, that these public servants who serve for decades...
Oh, is that a reference to Dan Bongino? Wait, I thought that guy's gone now completely.
He's gone. He's a podcaster.
Again.
But I don't think that is a reference to him.
It's some other Italian dude.
Because he was working in the CIA, or the, sorry, FBI.
Yeah.
That are being elevated. So in answer to your question, yes, I do have concerns.
Okay, I want to step back for a moment because you said you've talked about different administrations and changes in the department. You said this is not normal. With changes in administrations, there are changes in policies of the department, there are changes in personnel. I mean, how much of this is just elections have consequences?
Yeah, I think that's an important sort of foundational question to ask, because I think in the sort of like public looking at what happens every day, we sometimes just look at what we don't like, right? Like, I don't like that outcome, or I don't like what they're doing here. And I think that's the wrong focus. Elections do have
Jared Wise is the guy.
and
Gotcha.
if a new administration or a new party wins an election, they get to decide policy. So if you win and you want to focus more on immigration enforcement and less on environmental protection, elections have consequences. That has to happen. If you want to focus less on corruption and more on fraud, you can do that. And I think sometimes people don't like the policy choices, and they confuse that with what I think of as the traditions of the department. The reality is, if you're someone, as a young person or a young lawyer, and you only want to work on policy things that you agree with personally and would vote for personally, you are probably not cut out to be a career prosecutor. That's probably not the best profession for you. My personal view is that if you want to be a career public servant in the Justice Department, you need to be willing and capable to carry out lawful policies of any administration. That's your job. Your job is not to set policy, it's to carry it out. And so I think that is something that we have to put to one side, but that's a very different thing than not following the traditions of the department.
So what's different? Now focus in on what's different now that's not just change in policy, change in personnel. What are the red lines?
Yeah, so a couple. I'll give you some examples, and I can give you kind of some ways to think about it. You see career prosecutors, people who came up through the department like I did, you see them being fired or resigning because they don't want to investigate the family of a shooting victim, right? They don't want to charge senators and congressmen for exercising their First Amendment rights. They don't want to be part of a deal where we dismiss a case in hopes that a mayor will change his policies to be consistent with the president's policies. They're stepping down because those are not policy things. That's about doing the job the correct way. And those sort of examples that we've seen over the last year, I put them into two buckets or two categories that you can think about them. And the first is this, process versus outcomes. If you have a prosecutor who is so dead set on getting a certain outcome that they don't care how they get there, you should be very suspicious of that prosecutor. If part of the reason the Department of Justice works is the policies of the department have come about over years, right? They have been...
Wait, quick meme.
Interpret DEI.
What is this?
How do you interpret DEI?
There was the EO explicitly laid out the details.
These were the Doge employees that were.
It's okay. I'm asking for your understanding of it.
Yeah, my understanding was exactly what was written in the EO.
Okay. So can you?
I don't remember what was in the EO.
So right now, do you have an understanding of what DEI is?
Yeah.
Okay. So what's your understanding as you say?
Okay, this is a little bit bullshit because the person asking the question is kind of playing a debate trick by asking for definitions. So okay, be nice.
Here today.
To this poor guy.
In this deposition.
Well, it was exactly what was written in the EO. And so anytime that we would look at a grant through the lens of complying with an executive order, we would just refer back to the EO and assess if this grant had relation to it.
Okay, but I guess I'm stepping back from your methodology strictly in terminating the grants. Do you have an understanding as you sit here today of what DEI means?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's your understanding of what it means?
Well...
What's your definition?
It is exactly what was written in the EO.
Okay, so why is a documentary about Holocaust survivors DEI?
Objection.
It's the gender-based story that's inherently discriminatory to focus on this specific group.
It's inherently discriminatory to focus on what specific group?
The gender-based, so females. During the Holocaust.
And you believe that that's inherently discriminatory?
I'm just saying that's what it's focused on.
Sure.
But this is related to DEI.
Right. But you just used the term inherently discriminatory. What did you mean by that?
It's focusing on
Jesus.
DEI principles, gender being one of them.
So a documentary that's about women would be DEI.
Objection.
Is that fair to say?
No.
So,
tell me,
why what I just said isn't DEI, but what you just said is DEI?
Objection.
It's specifically focused on Jewish cultures, and amplifying the marginalized voices of the females in that culture. It's inherently related to DEI for those reasons.
King?
It's simple.
Shrimple
How do you
as.
interpret DEI?
Shrimple as, some might say.
Developed by people who have spent decades learning their craft, learning what works, learning what's fair. And when you start throwing that all out and you're like, I really don't care how we get there, we just need to charge this person. That's obviously dangerous. And you don't have to look far outside of our system to know that. When you look internationally, right, you've heard the term show trials, right? Stalin had show trials. The Nazis had show trials. More recently, Alexei Navalny in Russia. These are trials where the outcome is not in question, right? And the process is whatever process is necessary to get to the outcome you want. And so when I evaluate the things that we're seeing today, I think about process, and is there a process or is there an outcome? You look at the cases, for example, of Letitia James and James Comey. There was a message to the Attorney General, right, that wasn't supposed to be public but was, that said you have to go after these people. And then immediately after, they went after those people, even though the career prosecutor said there was no case. That's not process. That is, I want this particular outcome. You look at...
Can I jump in on that one? And I want you to keep going with your example, so hold that. But on process outcome and targeting individuals, how are those examples different from cases where the department identifies certain individuals that they target for prosecution because they lead a gang or they're terrorists or they're, or something like that, and they build a case, they're going to target that person and they build a case against them? How is that different from Comey, Letitia James? Where's the line there?
Well, I think the beginning of your question kind of answers it. If there's a gang problem, then you're going to look at who the gang leader was. If you have a crime problem in the neighborhood, you're going to look at who's causing that crime problem. If you have a phenomena of crime, you're going to look who the leaders were who could have started that. In the Letitia James case, that is a mortgage fraud of that level in my experience. I've never heard of that low a number ever being prosecuted, much less from, again, I don't know, I'm not in the department anymore, but the facts as I understand them are such that I've never heard of a case on those facts being brought. I've never heard, I've done this for 30 years, the department having to go to multiple grand juries repeatedly to try to get an indictment of that nature. When you start seeing stuff like that, it's so counter to process. That's very, very different than...
So it's also about, process and outcome is also about why the person is being targeted. Or maybe process is a question of why they're being targeted and for what reasons. And there are legitimate reasons and illegitimate reasons.
That's for certain, but I guess what I'm saying is, in addition to that, when you see that there's a direction that we're going to get to this outcome, no matter what, generally what you'll see is that the prosecutors blow through all the normal processes you would get to that because they can't be troubled, because those processes could stop you, right? If you're told to search somebody's house and you put together a search warrant and it turns out there's not probable cause to get that search warrant, well, that's a process problem, right, for you. You got to blow through that if you were told you're going to search their house no matter what. And
we were just doing this in class today, so very timely. For my students out there, very timely. Thank you. That was not planted. Go ahead.
It was not. So I think these examples where you see a process being put aside, and another way I think about process is when I was in the department, things work from the bottom to the top, right? A line prosecutor, an apolitical, nonpartisan prosecutor, looks at the facts and the law and says, I want to go forward in this case. I need these approvals to take these investigative steps. I need these approvals. It doesn't come from the top down. It doesn't come, I want you to prosecute this person. Let me find someone who's willing to do that. And again, I think what I find really unusual, and as I said before, not normal, is you're seeing in many of these cases, they can't even get a prosecutor in the office where they're prosecuting the case to go in the grand jury or to do the work. If you're not in the Justice Department, that may seem like, well, I don't know, maybe that happens. I'm here to tell you that is not normal. That is not a thing that happens, and it's a sign that the normal processes are not being followed. The same thing, just again, going back to the James and Comey cases, my understanding from the reporting is that the local prosecutors there actually wrote a memo saying, here's the facts and the law, which is what should guide this, and there's no case. And despite that, they fired the chief prosecutor, who they had put in place, to bring somebody in to prosecute a case who had never prosecuted a case before. Again, never heard of anything like that. It's a pretty good indication processes aren't being followed.
Okay, wait, another meme? Uh-oh. XQC attempts to clarify Asmongold's controversial take about combat medics.
Still doesn't excuse the double tap. Only reason for that is to kill medical. Well, of course you should kill their medical. Like, if they're helping, of course you should kill their medics. Like, if you have these people that are helping these soldiers that are terrorizing you and fighting against you, you should, of course, shoot them. Duh. Like, what do you...
Like, again, 12-year-old. Right? Like, oh, well, like, if you're fighting somebody and they've got civilians that are building weapons, you should just kill all the civilians, right? Obviously. Well, I mean, of course, duh.
Talking about? That's a war... What? Yes, absolutely. That's a war crime? What do you mean?
So?
The medics? Yes, absolutely.
Chat, I could be wrong, Chat, but I think what he's saying is that if it's not a normal war and somebody's a terrorist, I don't think the rules of war apply. Is this correct or is it false?
They do.
Hey X, love you. May I get a welcome to the jungle?
Also, how many terrorists have people running around in when they're fighting
Medics.
wars, like medic vests or whatever, right? Is this like a thing that Hezbollah is? I know there's a lot of goofy stuff that goes on with Hamas and everything, but like, does he think that like if you're fighting terrorists, you can just do whatever the fuck you want?
False? What? Am I wrong? That's not what. That's not. It seems like it. What? Well, chat. Is something a war crime if it's not war?
True.
That's the Trump method.
Holy
King
true.
shit.
We're
Did
not
he
at
smile
war.
after
We
that?
can't commit war crimes. King, he
Wait,
solved
go to the
it.
end. Was he smiling? Because I need to know if he was trolling or not there.
What? Well, chat. Is something a war crime if it's not war?
No, he looks pretty dead serious there.
Wait, how long is this video? Hold on. Okay, wait. Quick. 8-minute meme?
How can it be an 8-minute meme?
Before Skyscanner, searching for cheap fried tomatoes. Cray cray.
I've learned from the Charlie Kirk.
How close Konstantin Kisin came to being assassinated during his debate with Destiny.
That's
what?
Crazy fucking
What?
clickbait, dude.
I've learned from the Charlie Kirk killing.
This guy was sitting mere feet away from Konstantin Kisin during his debate with Destiny. When you hear what he has to say, it is scary to think how this could have gone.
I was like fucking locked onto his eyes, and he kept like glancing down at me and then like breaking eye contact. Because I fucking hate the guy. I was just like, I wanted to kill him.
I stumbled upon this.
Oh my god. Are we being serious right now? This is a genuine assassination attempt. What? How is it that every single thing Trump and everybody else says is just a troll, it's just a meme, it's just whatever, but for these people it's like, he said he wanted to kill him. Oh my god.
Stream when I was just trying to research and understand the opposing view, and I was shocked by
research LeMayo.
Some of the things this guy was saying. Keep in mind, this guy was sitting in Konstantin's eye line.
And I think he got distracted by that and didn't pay attention to a single thing. What are things said?
Yes, it is just talk, but there is something more disturbing beneath the surface here. He's openly talking about wanting to assassinate Konstantin. This
Shit, this guy's about to make his second trip to Rogan.
could have gone very differently. He even has a box cutter or X-Acto knife.
I should have done. Stanley Blades just fucking sprinted up onto the stage, slash Konstantin in the fucking jugular.
Okay, that's unhinged and retarded. You're crazy,
You
whoever this
shouldn't
guy
be
is.
making
that was an unhinged comment. Jesus Christ.
But he wants to kill him. You can see the chat. They're all thinking the same thing, it seems. No one seems to be bothered by this because it has become so common.
Is this guy one of my fans, or who is this guy? Gomer Pyle. Do I know this guy?
Place. He knows he can do this. YouTube's not going to do anything.
Good one.
Done. Sorted. Prison forever on the one hand. Prison forever on the one hand. And then I should have gone. Then I should have gone woke jihad. Woke jihad. I should have gone for the white race or something. I don't know.
You could say, oh, okay, well, he just worded that poorly, it's just an expression, but he takes this much farther. Then he gets into, based on what happened to Charlie Kirk, this is what I have learned when it comes to how to kill conservatives.
No, I feel like my genuine psychopath thought that I've learned from the Charlie Kirk killing is...
Is this guy like, I'm curious if this guy's a lefty who hates me, or if he's just a random YouTuber guy or whatever. This has to be satire now. I don't know, I guess I'd have to watch the full video. But when you're starting to, like, pull out weapons, I feel like you gotta calm the fuck down.
If you are going to assassinate a political target, then try to reduce the gore as much as possible so people can't sympathize with the bastard who's getting it. So you'd have to go up with like a cape, and, like cover him in a cape and do it cleanly under there.
Okay, nobody's linking his YouTube, so I will find it. Hold on. Pete. Gomer.
Well, did the guy not put it in the comments?
Simple as. Fuck. YouTube? Oh, hold on, wait. Somebody linked it.
Yeah.
Go on.
Good band.
Where is fuck. Do you think Gomer Pyle's like his YouTuber name or something, or?
You could maybe find it by doing some of the chatters in the
or something. Maybe
or in the chat. I don't know. Here, I'll try now.
I'll search after.
Yeah.
I need to get
Like an abattoir.
So he's literally openly talking about assassinating political targets here. So the question is, well, why? That's what I wanted to understand. That's why I take the time to even look at these streams.
It's all like dog whistling. We need to secure a future for the white people.
He makes it very clear. His belief is Constantine is a racist.
And all it is appealing or dog whistling to the stupidest voters, like the dumbest 10% of people who happen to be racist as well. Stick up for racism.
But then he talks about the real problem here is the weak white culture of the UK.
We simply don't have the white people stepping up and educating themselves in the right kinds of ways because of culture issues, I guess, because of the weak white culture.
He is the very thing he thinks he is fighting against. His entire analysis of Constantine's ideas are absolutely mischaracterized. He's not contending with them at all. And then he uses those ideas as his justification.
Based on these fucking ideas, for me to vote for the Green candidate, you retard piece of shit, Constantine. Slap, mug, you mug.
This provides us a window into this mentality, into the psychology of people like this. It's important to understand. It's important to see.
We hadn't also at the same time had the doctrine.
A lot of this would be much easier to manage if I got on that stage, grab his fucking lapels, right, flip in, and fucking hip on, bang, right over. You know what I'm talking about? I'm talking about right over my hip. Constantine's right over my hip. I've got his fucking lapel.
I genuinely don't understand it. Even if you disagree with Constantine, how could what he's saying upset you this much?
You're right. By the lapels, fucking hoof. Right, I'm talking bang, and his whole body just goes bosh into the fucking wood. That's what I'm saying.
This guy's like the white low tier god.
Reputation, okay? But you see these same ideas reflected at a higher level. Literally just yesterday, I stumbled on a stream where Destiny's head moderator is trying to talk to Destiny because he is concerned because he is seeing too many calls for violence in their Discord server, and he's beginning to worry that people aren't actually joking.
Yesterday, I think Destiny referred to it as like kind of school shooter vibes going on as far as how people are talking.
I like how I won't stop doing this because fuck these fucking losers. And also fuck everybody in chat that blames Hobbit on this, okay? I am literally the only content creator on the entire fucking planet that actually tries to moderate or do anything about his community, and anytime I have conversations like this, do anything about it, people lose their fucking minds. Meanwhile, these people's communities will be absolutely fucking unhinged, okay? Like, ready to go fucking, beat the shit out of their wives and then sign up for their $50,000 ICE bonus and then not even get paid and go to the border and start harassing brown people for the love of the game. But they just don't say shit about their audiences ever. They never check them. They never talk about any of it. And they constantly elude any amount of, like, responsibility or anything for any of it. And then they're gonna fucking clip me for having conversations like this? Like, it's absolutely fucking unreal, but okay.
A way that makes people think that, like, not just radical and, like, I'm so tired of people saying, like, well, Trump did radicalize me. You should be radical under Trump. I'm talking about radical as in, like, gonna cause violence in a way that isn't what everybody thinks it is kind of way. And I know, like, your argument is, like, well, people like Trump and things like that, like, they can say this stuff openly, and, like, I completely understand that argument. My argument is that people aren't taking this serious, and if they are taking it serious, and they are meaning the words that they're saying, and they're not joking, that is the problem.
Okay.
Everyone's joking, though. But everybody's not joking, though. My concern is that we are vastly approaching like point of no return in our own rhetoric within the community, and I think that it is being furthered by
now
us
the pretentious music comes on. Oh boy. How many videos do you think Warren Smith has made about Trump calling for the execution of sitting politicians? Like, it's none. It's never. It's so fucking cringe. Holy shit. What the fuck was that noise?
I'm forced to ask myself, how is this, if YouTube is going to kick off people like we've seen them kick off, why is this tolerated?
I'm literally demonetized.
I mean, we introduced new things, so I don't know what the monoculture is.
People are going to claim, yeah, but this guy's not famous. He's not, no one really knows who he is, that's why. But how is that even relevant?
And multiculturalism, which have, instead of creating a monoculture into which people are encouraged to buy in and integrate, have instead created a society in which people are encouraged to see themselves as members of an individual community.
He fails to see that he is the very thing he thinks his opponents are.
About 40 died. But this is what I hate about these people, is like, they make a career, right? They make a career out of violent and aggressive politics and riling it up and stoking it up.
So therefore we should take them out because they're riling things up. They're too full of hatred, so we should hate them.
This guy with 595,000 subs that gets like hundreds of thousands of views on his videos, 200K, 500K, 200K, assuming it isn't bot. This guy's girl has been kind of sus, but he's also on that fucking mainstream circle jerk zeitgeist. Has made a full YouTube video on this guy who has 9,420 subscribers. Holy shit. Andrew Wilson, undefeated. Who the fuck is this guy? The Anthropic Argument. Like about AI or global climate stuff, or?
Yeah, I mean, we probably got to watch the full video, but the shit that we've seen doesn't look great.
Well, I mean, no, the guy sounds fucking crazy. He sounds unhinged.
Yeah.
I'm curious if this is like a big fan of mine. Have I interacted with this guy, or if it's just like a dude who showed up to the
look.
debate?
His name's like Digital Genosis. I can check on DGG.
Yeah, Digital Gnosis, but... Huh. I explore philosophy, religion, and politics. I aim at accurate and clear communication where it's important. I value dialogue across boundaries of disagreement. I try to include humor where I can. The channel is more opinionated and will contain more of my own views.
There's no one named Digital... There's no, like, account named Digital Genosis or whatever in DGG.
Jesus Christ. Okay, well... Don't be like that guy, okay? He goes by Rin Lux in a lot of places. Shut the fuck up. Wait, this is the guy. Oh, RTBA linked me. Grifter Constantine Kisin logic mogged by Stripper Destiny.
That's the live video. By Stripper Destiny? That doesn't sound like a fan.
Well, maybe it's like Destiny's a woman's name.
Now, during which you've seen that stick to that point to make a clip on murder.
What is he, Fuck, hold on. What was he...
What does he talk about, or...?
Yeah, no, wait. What was he saying around that knife thing? I'm just curious what that segment looked like. Or was it... Did he say box cutter?
Yeah, I think box cutter or X-Acto knife. Blade, maybe?
Oh. There's no... I don't think there's any context that can save this, but let's see. Let's try.
People are not very good with numbers. But the other reason, of course, people...
Says guy whose main argument was big number big.
Aren't able to quote you the exact number of people who
I didn't ask for a quote of the exact number.
You said this earlier, and I'm addressing your broader point, which is why do people misunderstand the immigration statistics? Is that people don't look at immigration as this is the number of people who came this year and this is the number of people who came last year. They look at the reality of their lives, they look at the change they see around them, and what they're really concerned about is the cumulative impact of immigration over the period of their lifetime.
I should have done. Stanley Blades just fucking sprinted up onto the stage. Slash! Constantine in the fucking jugular. Done. Sorted. Prison forever on the one hand.
Jesus.
Prison forever on the one hand. And then I should have gone... Then I should have gone, woke jihad. Woke jihad. I should have gone for the white race or something, I don't know. No, I feel like my genuine psychopath thought that I've learned from the Charlie Kirk killing is if you are going to assassinate a political target, then try to reduce the gore as much as possible so people can't sympathize with the bastard who's getting it. So you'd have to go up with like a cape and like cover him in a cape and do it cleanly under there, you know, like an abattoir.
Which, as I explained to you, has been huge, unprecedented over the last 35 years.
Yeah, it's true. He's not worth it.
And will be even more unprecedented.
Oh, so he said he's not worth killing. So actually...
Oh, saved.
There we
Trimble.
go. We saved him. There we go. Woo! He got it.
In terms of its cumulative impact over the next 35 years. Now, it's true that immigration has come down to 300 or something thousand in the last year. Doesn't mean it will stay that way, but also I never predicted it would get to 1 million. I think Matt did. But the point I would make is the transformation over a 30-year period is what people actually care about and which is what they're right to care about. Now, as for the point about illegal immigration, yeah, it's true. Illegal immigration is a smaller percentage of the total immigration that we have than legal immigration.
But
it's still higher today than it was 35 years ago and 30 years ago, which is way too high. Illegal immigration should be zero. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Do we have any final thoughts before we move on to the next?
Yeah, I mean, every crime should be zero, but there's always going to be some amount of crime or some amount of illegal immigrants. I guess the issue I have
Don't you agree with that, Destiny? Illegal immigration should be zero.
you say, why do the British people not understand the exact numbers? I didn't ask for the exact numbers. It's like 10 or 11 million to 1 million. There are different estimates from 500,000 to 1.3 million or whatever illegals. It's a big ratio, 10 to 1 to be off by, to assume it's 50-50, that
More
or
like
that there are more
24.
illegals than are legal immigrants
It's a small
here.
boat
And I think the issue is people in your position, or people like Reform or Restore, depending on how right you want to go, lie constantly about the immigrant population in the United Kingdom. And then as a result of selling those lies to the people, you get these ridiculous plans or attempts to fix it all in the United Kingdom. And because the problem was never as severe as it was stated.
Yeah, this is a line of questioning that's really frustrating, given how much given how much Constantine harps on about this quote unquote problem as well, is that he has absolutely no policy suggestions. And so, what is the point of your engagement in politics if you're not actually bringing any policy suggestions to the table? You're just here to say, oh, big number scary. Like, what is your actual point?
First place, the problem ends up not being solved, and then you exacerbate other problems. So at the end of the Tory government, with this attempt with like the Rwanda plan, this idea that you're going to ship people to other countries to have them processed first, or with the idea that leaving Brexit would give the UK greater control over their immigrant population.
Please don't say what?
Please don't say anything nice about Destiny, please.
Oh, I think his comments earlier were. I think he was just being way too fucking edgy. But I'm pretty sure they were joking. He wasn't legitimately talking about murdering this guy. But not good. You shouldn't joke like that, especially when you got a fucking knife on stream or whatever. But
for sure, his YouTube channel had like a video, which I think the title is kind of true. Like Elon Musk is an enemy of Britain. It just is a little scary to think about this guy like going and fucking murdering someone. So
I've already said to access the same people that were trying to claim asylum in the EU, and then if they were rejected once there, to send them back if they came to Britain next. You lost access to a lot of these things, and then the same people that were in charge of pushing those ideas are now telling you and selling you on the idea that reform is going to come in and somehow fix the very same issues that they've been lying about and have failed to fix in the past. And you might hear this talking point, this cope that reform is different. We're not going to be like the old conservatives. But then you've got all your politicians are going to be empty Tories that are defecting to join the new reform party. So I don't know where all this new blood is going to come from. I don't know. It just seems like a whole bunch of like, here's a fake problem. I'm going to put it in front of you. There is like
he's a Constantine anti-fan.
Problem here, regardless of what you said earlier, I don't think rapes are good, mass rapes or normal rapes. I think there should be some probably cap on what type of immigrants and how many should come to the country. I just never really hear a discussion on any of that. I just hear 500,000 British girls have been gang raped by mass grooming gangs, and it wasn't like that when I came over in '96, despite the fact that those Rogan grooming gang scandal started in the '80s. So I don't feel like I ever hear anything else that's being spoken about.
Yeah. Well, it's a pity we didn't have someone from Reform on stage so you could rehash your Wikipedia talking points to them.
Oh my god, this fucking loser, dude.
You're a Reform voter though, right?
No, I've never voted for Reform.
Would you vote for Reform in the upcoming election?
It depends on who stands in my constituency. Last election, I voted for a Liberal Democrat.
I didn't ask about last election. In the upcoming election, will you vote for Reform?
I will probably vote for the same person who's a Liberal Democrat.
Okay, so you don't think you would support the Liberal Reform guy?
I think that this was disingenuous of Constantine, because the reason why he specifically is talking about this Lib Dem
it's because he was a protest vote against Labour. I don't know his constituency though, so I can ask the breakdown on stage because he would just fucking lie.
This Lib Dem candidate is because he likes this one Lib Dem candidate. It's unrelated.
Or it could be that particular guy too, but I don't know what constituencies.
The other point, if I could get to it, is the second point, and this would be for those of you in the audience who are ever thinking of being prosecutors and like to pursue that career. 2 words I have for you. 2 words that are as important as you will hear, and it's this: facts matter. The facts actually matter. And one of the things that I see in the Justice Department today is that that's not the case. And in fact, you see where there is a concern on the leaders of the department's part that those facts could lead them somewhere they don't want to go. They make sure those facts aren't followed. A good prosecutor goes where the facts take them. I can't tell you how many times in my career I've started an investigation with an understanding of certain facts, and a full investigation showed me that what I looked at originally, it didn't happen like that at all. I might know 3 facts, and they seem to really drive in one direction, and then when I compile 97 other facts, it's a completely different story. Prosecutors, good ones, have to be able to change their judgments no matter how much work they put in to go where the facts take them. And what I see in this administration is situations where a reticence to follow the facts because it will involve prosecuting or investigating somebody they know the president doesn't want them to prosecute or investigate. There's numerous examples of this. You can start with, I think it was referred to as Signalgate, where they were talking over a Signal app about war plans, what were clearly classified war plans. I can tell you with certainty that there is no administration, Republican or Democrat, since I've been a prosecutor, they would not open an investigation in that case.
100%.
But in that particular, I'm not going to say where that would come out, like how that would turn out, because as I said, you don't know in the beginning. But if you remember, in that case, the Attorney General said there would be no investigation the very day it came out. Shut that down. Didn't want to know the facts. Just didn't want to have an investigation. We're seeing the same thing now in Minnesota, where victims of police shootings are being called domestic terrorists, again, before a single fact is collected, and then blocking local authorities from investigating that. That is the antithesis of facts matter. And to be clear, I don't profess to know how an investigation would turn out. Part of what a good prosecutor does is not comment on how things might turn out until they do the investigation.
True.
So I think people on both sides saying if it's a crime or not a crime is not how we should do things. But if you shut the door to facts, you shut the door to the rule of law. You shut the door to getting outcomes that the public can trust.
Okay, so importance of process, importance of facts. these are themes that link together red lines that have been crossed in the department today. It sounds like before we even think about how we might rebuild the department, there are certain first principles that we have to think about. What are those first principles?
Well, as I said, these two, right? Like process matters, following the facts matters, keeping politics out of the decision-making of prosecutors matters. I also think that one of the sort of first principles we need to talk about and think about is how to protect apolitical, nonpartisan public servants so they can do their jobs. Because when you don't follow the facts and when process doesn't matter and integrity doesn't matter, the Justice Department can't do its job in lots of ways beyond these cases that we're talking about now. If the Justice Department is not inhabited by people who have integrity and who can follow the facts and the law without fear or favor, one, they just can't do the job, but they're also not going to be trusted. A big thing I have seen through my 30 years as a prosecutor, we've seen this in the international setting as well, is that the rule of law does not enforce itself.
What are these guys talking about? Shut the fuck up.
You can't just have a law book and say, hey, there's a law in the books. You did wrong. Please report to prison for the appropriate sentence, or decide which cases to bring or not bring. It takes people of high integrity who function based on ideals that we all agree on about truth and integrity to make those calls, to make the sacrifices to make those calls. And unless we protect those people, it's very hard to have outcomes that the rest of us can trust. And so I think one of the things that for someone who loves the department and is now outside it, seeing the loss of credibility that department prosecutors have had with the courts over the last year has been just saddening to me. One judge said credibility that has been built up over years has been lost in weeks. And it's not just in these cases that we're talking about where people are being targeted. When judges and juries don't trust prosecutors, they're going to start not trusting them for other things too. Things that we want for them to protect our communities from violence, to protect us from fraud, to fight corruption. And basically the sort of mission the department has broadly, it's not capable of doing that anymore. Another way I think about it is this. To have a public institution that functions, right, that actually can do what you set it up to do, you need three things. And this particularly in my mind goes to the Justice Department. You need competence, you need integrity, and with integrity I'll put independence. And then the third is you need to be able to communicate those things to the public. So
let's break those down. You've talked a little bit about integrity, but I want to come back to that because there's, I think, more to say about it. But competence, what do you mean by that? Like, how does that figure in here?
Yeah, I think one of the things that again, from where I personally sit, living my life and having had my career, that I'm really concerned about is part of what I see as an attack on the rule of law is an attack on competence, right? We think that someone who spent decades learning their craft and how to do something the right way for the right reasons, that doesn't really matter anymore. We can just put somebody in who's never done that before and they'll just do it. And I think of the example, imagine if you had a heart problem or need a brain surgery. Would you ever say, well, this person's a great surgeon, but I'm not really sure I like their politics. This person has never performed surgery ever once in their life, but I feel policy-wise we're the same. You'd never do that. And I think...
Can you translate that into... because I think everybody intuitively gets that, right? A heart surgeon, right? But how do you translate that into the Department of Justice? And maybe you can speak a little bit about your own trajectory. You started as an ADA in Manhattan, became an AUSA, and then you have moved into leadership positions. Talk about competence in the department and what exactly that means.
Yeah, so and just to frame it, I think part of the challenge is how I understand being a prosecutor, the expertise it requires. I understand it like that, and I think a lot of people outside the department don't understand being a heart surgeon and being a prosecutor handling complex cases, that they're really analogous.
I think that's right.
Yeah. And so to give you an example.
I thought a deadline on any part of this thing killed it. I don't know how to be placed in the back. Fuck me. You motherfucker.
I think ethically and by integrity, I'm the same person I was when I was 25 years old when I became a prosecutor for the first time after leaving the school.
Back when he was hosting the No Jumper podcast.
If someone had told me, hey, Jack, you're a good guy, you got your head on straight, we want you to take on the role of investigating war crimes around the world or serving as special counsel. You're a good person, you'll figure it out. That would not have gone well.
Why not? Why not? Like, I want to get sort of specific here. I get it, and I believe you.
Do you think Jack Smith will go back in the next administration, or do you think he's fucking done?
We don't even know if there'll be a special investigator. Yeah. Who knows? Yeah.
Can you be you know, when you're a heart surgeon, it's very technical and you learn all the special, like, what is it that you gain in it? What does competence mean in the department? What is it, right?
So there's so many different skills. And so I'll give you a few, but like you're interviewing a really important witness in a very big case that everybody in the world is watching, right? And you have to decide through the course of that interview if this person is credible or not, if they're telling the truth on difficult subjects. If that's your first interview, you're not going to know the sort of tells that happen or how to test someone's credibility. But if you interviewed hundreds and hundreds of people like we have in our career, you're going to know how to do that. If you've never handled a major national security case and you don't know the intricacies of the department requirements to take investigative steps, it's not even just a matter of intelligence. It's experience and judgment. And when you're running a complex investigation or a prosecutor's office as a U.S. attorney, you're recalled to make judgments every day that require both integrity for sure, but also experience because you've seen a version of this problem many times before, and also just a skill. You know, like if a lawyer comes into your office and they have a big trial tomorrow and they have to cross-examine somebody and they need help, if you've never ever done that or even really watched it, you're not going to be of any help to them. But if you have and you can, that office is going to have better outcomes and serve the public better. And so I think a lot of the things that lawyers do, people don't understand that you're a lot better having done them after a couple decades than when you first start doing them. Of course, we know that in all professions, but I don't think we understand the degree of difference. And the last thing I'll say on this topic is, one of the great things that I've enjoyed about working in the department is the career people who've been there for decades, they know their substantive areas so well. And one of the great things of being a prosecutor in the department is you can lean on those people and rely on those people and ask for their advice about how to handle things. When I was at the Public Integrity...
One thing that I don't think Jack Smith pays enough attention to is like, how much do we actually need these people now that we have AI and we could just replace all of them with fucking Claude? Hell yeah.
Section. That is sort of the clearinghouse for expertise on
from the government.
Political corruption cases.
Oh, true.
And so prosecutors from around the country would call us and ask our advice, get our approval for certain investigative steps, and that made it a lot more likely things were going to be done well and the right way and for the right reasons. The Public Integrity Section is in essence, I mean, it's technically there, but it's in essence been disbanded as I understand it. And as I say, I think that's a jettisoning of expertise at the cost of the rule of law. That trying to get rid of people who can say how things should be done makes it easier to just get the outcomes that you really want to get.
It's actually not going to be the last thing you say on it because I have one more question on this. I just want to press again a little bit further on this, which is to say, like, ask you, can you, so first of all, you've sometimes talked about this experience as getting reps, and you've said it, like getting, you know, doing hundreds of interviews, seeing cases over and over again, and building up to a point where you have, and I think this is the important word, you said judgment, right, to make these decisions. But what is, you've kind of touched on it a little bit, but I just wonder if you can say more about what's the consequence for the department losing career people who've been there for decades, who are in senior positions, whether it's in public integrity, national security, narcotics, terror, whatever, across the department. What's the consequence for the department losing that kind of level of competence?
Well,
it's
I think
bad. What do you want him to say?
One consequence. The easiest one is one of, well, you'll just do things wrong in a way that when it comes time to go to court, you'll lose a case you should have won and a case that would have been good for the public and for the American people if you had won, but you just aren't that good at it because you haven't done it before. I think maybe what you're getting at is a deeper problem, is that the people, in my experience, who inhabited these roles, they did things the right way, and they did it for the right reasons. And you knew that if there was a decision to prosecute someone, that it wasn't for political reasons because these people wouldn't stand for it. And I think that's one of the reasons you're seeing a lot of these resignations is because people don't want to be a part of that. That gives a confidence not only whether you're going to win or lose in court is one thing, but whether you're doing things the right way and whether people in the public can trust that, hey, I don't have time to read the whole case file in this case, but how you seem to be going about your job, I feel like I can trust that. We need to have that trust in our government generally, but particularly in the Department of Justice, given the great powers that prosecutors have, the great discretion that prosecutors have.
Okay, now, so you said competence, integrity, communication. Let's go back to integrity and independence. How does that translate in the department? You've said a little bit about integrity. Can you say more about it and about independence? What does that mean in the Department of Justice? Because the Department of Justice, part of the unitary executive, part of, right? So what does that mean exactly?
Yeah, so I can talk about the Department of Justice that I kind of grew up in, from a line prosecutor taking direction to someone eventually giving direction. And in my prosecutorial career, the idea that you would go after someone or not...
Okay. He uses the term line prosecutor, okay? Fuck Kafka for saying, like, I don't know what you guys mean by line prosecutor. You mean like in the, fuck you, Kafka.
Not like a line cook. Because of their politics. It was just not on the table. I say all the time, my first boss was a guy by the name of Gene Percaro. He was the chief of the section I was in at the district attorney's office before I was a federal prosecutor. If I had told him, hey, I'm going to go after this guy because he's a political enemy of the DA, or I'm going to not go after this guy even though we've got a good case because he's a friend of the DA, my boss would have literally thrown me out a window. I mean, it was so far from how anybody would talk or think. And early in my career, the questions we're talking about now, it wasn't like it was on the table as a discussion. And I think that the people, in my view, who served in the department for decades, many of whom who've either been fired or forced to resign, they were the keepers of that ethic. You knew that you may not like the decision, but it was made in good faith. And that means a lot. And so I think losing that is a tremendous loss. And again, I think, for example, if you're a corruption prosecutor, right? Any case you bring, somebody's going to think you're great and someone's going to think you stink, right? Depending on who the defendant is. And what good career prosecutors know is that none of that stuff matters. The people who like you today won't like you tomorrow, and then they'll like you again, and then they won't. It's all noise. I think people who are responsive to news cycles and have to get their message out today, that is not the sort of people you want making decisions about prosecuting people and taking away their liberty. The people I knew who were prosecutors would never let that sort of stuff affect their thinking. And so those two first building blocks, like I know how to do this job actually. Like I actually am competent and qualified to do it. And the second is, I can be trusted to do it fairly. You can trust me because I don't have a horse in the race politically. I don't have a horse in the race wanting a certain outcome from me personally. Without those, you can't even have a question about having the rule.
You need to take it back.
But then we get to the third topic.
Right, and it's about communication, and you just alluded to that about news cycles and communication. How do you communicate
He's like a little
this
nub,
to the
I
public,
think.
and how much is communication part of your success as a good prosecutor?
Yeah, so this is the one for me that these days I spend the most time thinking about. And part of the reason is, well, the first two, competence and integrity, are foundational. They're not hard. We've done that. We actually, at least the people I work with, we know how to do that. I think communicating to the public that you are competent and that you can be trusted is really hard today, given how we all talk and communicate with each other.
We got him.
Getting people to listen who don't already agree with you, just culturally these days, is really challenging. And I think it's particularly hard for prosecutors because there are rules, right? Like you do not want to say something when a case is pending that would interfere with someone's right to a fair trial, right? You do not want to say something that would violate the local rules, because every federal court has local rules that very specifically limit the things prosecutors can say when a case is pending. But we also have a reality where powerful defendants can have whole communications teams out there repetitively saying things that are not true, that are misinformation, that will get a certain group of people, a certain part of our society, believing things that aren't true. And you don't have a mechanism to push back on that. And so I don't have a solution to this, but what I do think is that we need to start having a conversation where people like me, who know what you're supposed to do this job right, start talking to, frankly, younger people who understand how we communicate with each other these days and coming up with solutions to that. I'm not sure that would be a perfect one because there's a tension between what a prosecutor can and should say when a case is pending. But I think as we sort of think ahead, this strikes me as one of the things that we need to get better at, and we need to, particularly in my mind, communicate not just in like the legal community and not just in sort of like institutions like Harvard Law School. We need to find a way for prosecutors to communicate with people who don't get to go to Harvard Law School and are in communities that don't have access to a lot of the things we have access to in a place like this. I think that is very doable. I think prosecutors do stuff like that all the time. Like when we, as a prosecutor, when I argue a case to a jury, right, I'm pulling in people from all over a community. When I was a prosecutor in New York, you can imagine how diverse that jury pool is, right? And I had to get people who came from all different sorts of backgrounds, all different sorts of perspectives. The only way I win is if I convince them unanimously that I have it right here. Now, by the time we get there, I should have vetted my facts and law really well that I should be able to do that. But I think we, in this divisive time we're living in, we underrate our ability to sort of reach out to people who we disagree with. It's uncomfortable to do that. But I think we got to start finding ways personally and individually to do that if we want to, once we have competence, integrity, if we want people to really believe that's true.
Where the fuck are all the
So
comments
maybe
at?
with communication, as you say, prosecutors can't live by the news cycle. That'll undermine their integrity. But maybe it's a matter of others speaking in that space, right? For prosecutors, filling that space about what's really going on to try to balance out the communication.
Yeah, I like I said, I do not sit here telling you I have all the solutions. I would share them with you if I did. But I do think that we need to rethink it and think about it. We can't ever do anything that makes it less likely someone's going to get a fair trial. That's a red line. We can't do that. But there do have to be ways that we can say things that go beyond the sort of circles. When I came up as a prosecutor, you talked in the courtroom and not on the media steps. And if someone decided you really had to give a press conference, you guys have seen those things, right? I get up there and say the most boring thing possible.
If a MAGA guy could watch this without being distracted, do you think their impression of Jack Smith would change? Bro, I don't even know. I don't know what the fuck they're watching. Wait, no.
No one ever remembers, and I knocked it out, and thank you, goodbye. And I'll say, in my career, and this is like a learning experience for me, I probably was someone who erred on the side of saying less for never wanting to be ever accused of interfering with someone's right to a fair trial, and never wanting to sort of showboat or try to be, in the media when I didn't need to. I think you got to do it for the right reasons, but I think that's a component of the job that I early in my career didn't see as part of my job, and I now think that for the next leaders of the department, that is going to be a really important part of the job, but at the same time, I wouldn't want the next leaders of the department to be communication specialists who didn't really know the traditions of the department. You gotta have both. It's a new skill set to add to the old.
So I'm starting to get some questions from the audience, and some of these are questions that I actually are already on my outline, but this one I had not thought of, and it kind of goes back. You talked about lawyers at the DOJ resigning. What do you? They're kind of, that's a sort of double-edged thing, right? So on the one hand, they're resigning under principle. On the other hand, or because they just can't work in that environment for reasons you've been talking about. But on the other hand, then they're leaving space for other lawyers, that may not have the competence, may not have the integrity, may not have the same principles, same experience to come in and fill those jobs. So how should lawyers in the department think about that? Should they stay and fight the fight? Should they resign on principle? How do they resolve that?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question, and it's interesting in part because it's a question I think most prosecutors in the department never thought they'd have to ask themselves that question. And so they're being asked to sort of make a really important decision about their own lives on a question that they really never thought was going to come up when they took a career path. My personal view of it, and this goes for both people in the department and people, if you're in the audience, who are thinking maybe you were interested in a career in the department in the future. What I would say is that the costs have changed, but the question hasn't. If you believe in public service, if you believe in serving members of your community, you should still do that. Now, if you are asked to carry out a policy thing that you don't really like, but it's a policy thing, I think you got to do that. And I think if you're not willing to do that, as I said in the beginning, I don't think that's how a career prosecutor behaves. And I think then maybe being in the department in a non-political position is not for you. On the other hand, I tell people all the time to stay in the department because it's those people who are continuing to make it work. As bad as some of the things we've talked about today, it could be a lot worse. It could be a lot worse if a lot of the people who believe in the rule of law and are sacrificing for all of us by staying in the department if they didn't stay. But at the same time, you get to a point where you're asked to do something that's unethical, and you're asked to do something that violates your oath as a public servant. Then when that happens, you can't stay. I get it. And I think what I tell people is you're going to know. It's a big decision and it's hard, but I think particularly experienced prosecutors are going to know the difference between those two. So my advice and my position is that people should continue to serve, and people should continue for the same reasons they went into the service in the first place.
Jack, you've talked a number of times, you've used the phrase, the rule of law. And I want to kind of look at this from that frame, think about the rule of law. What is that? That can mean a lot of things to different people. That phrase can be used in lots of different ways. What does the rule of law mean to you? And is it under threat today in the United States?
Yeah. So I think of the rule of law distilled down. What it means to me is treating people equally under the law. It's really that simple in my mind. And what I mean by that is it shouldn't matter your politics, your race, your gender, all those things shouldn't matter. It should be the same for everybody. Now, to be very clear, I'm not saying that the department throughout its history has always done a great job of that. But what I will say is that during my career, what I saw is that people were always trying. People were working towards that. That was an ideal that we sought. I think the rule of law is under attack today because I'm not sure the leaders of the department have that same orientation. I think the leaders of the department now are willing to carry out the president's bidding, and that means protecting allies and going after enemies. And that's the opposite of treating everybody equal. So I think the examples we've seen that we've talked about a little today show it is under threat, but I also think that it is a situation where, as bad as things can seem sometimes, there's a lot of things all of us can do to kind of push back on that. And I think it's incumbent on all of us to do, each of us, what we can to push back on those sort of things.
So I have another audience question, and I think I know you pretty well, but I don't know how you're going to answer this question.
All right.
You ready for it?
I don't know.
Who is your hero?
Oh.
In life or the legal profession? We're not talking cycling here, right?
Wow.
In life, I'll give you a second. Life or the legal profession, how does that hero help you do your job better?
It's funny, like, I would honestly say this is going to come out, my dad probably. So I grew up in a place where I'm the first person in my family to go to college. We were talking about this earlier, where I grew up, people did not wear suits and ties. My dad worked in a factory most of his life. My dad supervised 0 people in his life. He never supervised a single person. But he gave me the tools for my career. And it's funny because when he and I talk, he just can't imagine the world that I'm in and the things that I've done in my life. But I couldn't have done them without the sort of foundation he gave me.
Say more.
Yeah, well, so for example, you and I have worked together in a couple different iterations. And I have developed how I like to lead a place. And a lot of that comes from my dad, who never led a single place, because when I was a kid, he would come home, he would talk about the people who led him and how they behaved. And if they looked out for their people, if they were out for themselves, how they treated people above them and below them. And that was really important to me. And, when you're a parent, I'm now a parent, and I can't figure out what my kid's going to remember or not. And I'm sure there were a lot of things my dad really wanted to impress on me that I've completely forgotten. But hearing him talk about those situations and who he admired and who he didn't and how he reacted to that, I think it informed a lot of who I want to be, at least. Maybe I don't know who I am, but who I want to be. So I don't know how helpful an answer there is, but I think that's the best I have for you.
It's a great answer. This is going to be a little bit of a pivot, but you've mentioned a couple times working overseas. You worked in 2 positions overseas. You worked at the International Criminal Court. You were the investigations coordinator, and then just before your appointment to special counsel, you were the specialist prosecutor of the Kosovo Specialist Chambers in The Hague, which was a court dedicated to investigating crimes in Kosovo during the war. Those are international, very different experiences. How did those experiences inform how you think about these issues about the department? How did they shape you? What did you learn from those experiences?
Yeah. So they made me better prosecutors, right? Because you know some of the cases we worked on overseas, massive cases, all sorts of challenges in investigation and prosecution that we don't have here. Learning how to adapt to completely different systems, completely different laws, things like that. That goes back to what I was saying before about like, until you have this range of experiences, you can't be the person capable of doing these more complex things. So that's on like a practical level. But also, and I think you probably had the same experience, you see in these places where we investigated war crimes, you saw the rule of law sort of fall off the shelf. And what I saw repeatedly is it's where the social fabric broke down.
Just saw the Lorenz bit. Are you claiming the sources that she cited didn't exist? I just don't trust her interpretation. I don't think she's interpreting them. Interpreting? Jesus, that's not a word. I don't think she's interpreting them correctly. Or rather, she's strained the ordinary meaning of the word so much so as to construct a full picture that's not accurate. So, for instance, when she says, like the headline or the subheadline of her article was that their content was being restricted or that they were given content guidelines by Chorus. Like in a very strict sense, it might be true that Chorus said something like you can't, like I think one of the things they said is that you're not allowed to do an event with a politician or political party or whatever with money that we pay you, because that would be a campaign finance law violation. So like in a very strict sense, you could argue, well, that's a type of content that was being prohibited by the Chorus contract. But when you read it, what you're really talking about is like, were they being told what to say, what political positions they could have? Taylor knows that's the take that audiences are getting from that article, and she knows that's the take that she's communicating, but she's not very honest about that, yeah. So my guess is if you would actually have access to that full contract, I think that you would find that the majority of, if not everything she was saying, was just not very true. Otherwise, I feel like she would just quote from the contract directly to prove it. Yeah.
It's where people ended up saying, well, the elites in the society are not following the rules. Why should I follow them? And usually corruption was a precursor to violence. That's what happened in a lot of the places we were at, the ICC and other places. And it makes me concerned because I think that we have had the rule of law function in our country for so long that we take it for granted. True. We just assume that it's permanently durable. True. And that no matter what we do and what anybody does, it's just going to keep functioning. True. And I've seen places that thought that, and then there was a day that didn't happen anymore.
Man, this guy's a truth sayer.
I think what history shows you, if you look at these examples, it is that once that contract breaks and once you lose that, it is so hard to get it back and to build it back. And so that's why I think we're at such an important point now, because we still do have the rule of law. There's a lot of people who believe in the things we're talking about today and who are willing to sacrifice for them. And I think it's important to make it a front and center issue because I know that once you lose it, it's much harder to get back.
Another audience question. The job of public service has become much more in the spotlight. If you are, and it's not just the senior people, but line prosecutors are now, there's a lot of public attention, there's a lot of partisanship, there's a lot of controversy, right? How, if you're thinking about public service, how do you think about this dimension of it, of how you deal with...
Do you have any issue with The Wire for choosing to run the story? You mean Wired? Yeah, I think it's a dog shit story, but I don't know anything about the publication for their political side or anything. I wouldn't be able to tell you. I don't know if they've ran a majority of good or bad stories. I don't read much Wired. I don't see many articles from Wired, so...
That spotlight with attacks, you said before that people are going to hate you, people are going to like. How do you kind of deal with that in your profession?
Well, my personal view is that someone who really craves attention and someone who really craves approval, I would direct you not to be a prosecutor. I don't think that someone who that is what drives them. I don't think you're probably the best candidate for a career as a prosecutor because you have to be, you cannot let that drive what you do. The attention's unfortunate because, the way my career has worked out, here I am talking to you today, right? But I never sought or craved that attention. And I think that now the pressure that's put on public servants, the threats that people face, the sort of like that you have to think, well, if I take this job, my family could come under threat. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. And we should pause and think about how we got here and what individually all of us could do to turn that in the other direction. Because over time, there'll be really good people who could really do great things for our country who are going to do a calculation and say, well, I'm willing to pay these costs, but I'm not paying that cost. And I think that's the sort of longer term cost I'm worried about. And so I think that's what you bring up is real. But I also think that all public, all public service has costs. And like one phrase I've heard that I like a lot is, if it's not hard, it's not service. And so, you know,
That's
if you
why
think
my
you're doing something
dick is
to help,
servicing your mom.
if it's not hard, maybe think
Sorry.
again, because you could probably do a little
Just
more.
kidding.
I do think like the threats and everything are a different thing. But people who really want to make a difference in public service have to be willing to sacrifice.
So this is a question I got from the audience, but it was also my outline.
You want to take credit for that? That you're like...
I do. Yeah, I anticipate it. Yeah.
Okay, Alex, they're all your questions.
Thank you. I thought of it. It's an obvious question. So 30 something years ago, you were out there in the audience at this school listening to people. Can you talk about your experience at Harvard Law School? And are there aside from Professor Wilkins, are there particular things that you remember that shaped you, that were important to you when you were in law school?
Yeah, so let me start with my sort of like Harvard Law School origin story. So in our class in '94, I was the last guy who got in. I was on the wait list. I was driving my Dodge Daytona, leaking oil, down to the University of Virginia. And on the way down, we didn't have cell phones then. They called my house and they said, hey, would you be interested in coming to Harvard? I stopped in New Jersey at a friend's house. And on Friday afternoon, the office calls and they say, hey, if we offered you a position, a spot, would you take it? And I said, listen, I got a car leaking oil downstairs with a UVA sticker on it, so it has to be like an offer. So they call me back and they're like, okay, we offer you it. And then I
Hold on, wait back 1 sec.
hammered out my financial aid, a good lawyer practice, right? I hammered out my financial aid that afternoon, and I just turned my car up and drove to Harvard. So I get here, and I've told you this story before. I get here, and I'm excited, right? I've never been in an environment like this. I went to a state school. As I told you, no one in my family going to college. And I go to the admin people, and they give me my room, and I truck myself to my room, and I get to my room, and there's another guy in my room. And I'm like, hey, it's kind of like on the airplane, right? Like, hey, this is my, and it turns out it was his room. And so I don't have a room. So Ames Hall over there, I had all my stuff in the closet at the end of the hall there for a night. And then eventually I got a room on that hall, on the International Students Hall. And it was just...
Wait, man, in the version I heard of this story, you spent some nights in that
I spent a night or two there because they didn't have a place for me. Yeah, but it was a big closet. And I was just so happy to be here, Alex. But I tell the story, it's kind of a crazy story, but what I came away from that was like, I just felt so lucky to be here. I just felt so lucky to have this opportunity to be, we were talking about this earlier, about to be with people who would push me and test me and make me better. And so for my time here, the things I would give y'all in terms of what I learned was, what was really useful to me was when practitioners either came to campus or practitioners like Professor Ogletree, for me, told me about their lives and their careers, because it gave me a window onto what I wanted to do, because I had no friends or library of experiences to compare the different sorts of careers I would have. I also tried to use like the different activities you can do here. I did the Prison Legal Assistance Project. I did a bunch of different clinical programs to sort of test out different careers and see what fit me. And I did a little of everything, and I think in doing that, I got very lucky, and I picked a path that I really liked from the beginning, and I didn't end up switching too much because I really enjoyed what I was doing. And so part of what I would say to folks here is, use your time here to learn from people who've trod different paths that you might want to follow. And then the other thing I would say is, one thing I've learned in my career is like, what a privilege public service is. And if you're considering it as one of the things you're going to do, really give it a try. It's been, other than my family, it's been one of the biggest blessings in my life. And it has a centering effect on you and on your lives. And this is a great place. There's a lot of ways that this institution supports that. And so take advantage of that if you can. You don't have to like game out. I know a lot of Harvard Law students have a plan of where they're going to be at 40 and 50 and 60. We all who are that age know the world doesn't work like that. Show up, be excellent at what you do, and opportunities will come. But I think this is a great place to kind of try out those things, so you can try the different paths you're considering and see people who've walked where you want to walk.
Are there particular people who inspired you here?
Professor Ogletree in particular was someone who, just because he'd done this groundbreaking work as a public defender and the way he spent time with his students, also Professor Streicher, who was my advisor for my paper, this was a new environment. I'd never been in an Ivy League school before. And so people who took an interest and took time to kind of help me, I think maybe I might have needed more help than some in terms of figuring my career path, that meant a lot to me.
On your career path, why did you go to the Manhattan DA's office? Why did you choose that path? Like, how did you go that route?
Well, it was partially from my time here at Harvard. I had done a number of different clinical programs. I'd done an internship at the Norfolk DA's office. I'd also done an internship at the U.S. Attorney's office. And the assistant U.S. attorney who I was assigned to was a great guy. His name was Brad Bailey. And this is why I say this, is like, I was watching him do his job and I was like, this is so cool, man. I would like to do this. And I wouldn't have known that because I'd never been around a prosecutor before, and I just liked it. And that inspired me to want to really try being a prosecutor. And then the Manhattan DA's office to me is the most storied prosecutor's office in the country. And I will say too that my 5 years there, of all the things I've done, by far the most fun I've ever had professionally.
Why?
Because it was just so crazy. It was just so different than I grew up, the environment I grew up in. You're trying cases all the time. You're like, you grow up on TV and you see people arguing cases to juries, and you're like, oh my God, I'm doing that right now. You're helping people and you're interacting with people who come from completely different backgrounds than you, and sometimes they're hostile to you, sometimes they need your help, and you're just being tested every day in a million different ways. And I also loved about the job that like people just cared about doing the right thing. Like nobody was there to make a lot of money. Nobody was there because they were going to be in the newspaper for doing some case. No one cared about the cases we were doing. You just did it. I did a lot of domestic violence cases, helping domestic violence victims. These cases were not in the newspaper. No one's following it. But it was incredibly meaningful work. And so I just loved it. I mean, my first job, $28,000 a year I was making. $28,000 a year. And I felt like the luckiest guy in the world. So perfect way to start a career for me.
And then you had this remarkable career from Manhattan DA's office, Eastern District of New York, U.S. Attorney's Office, International Criminal Court, Public Integrity Unit, U.S. Attorney's Office in Tennessee, brief stint in private practice for about 9 months or so. Then immediately got out of that and became the specialist prosecutor in The Hague, and then special counsel, and then guest at Harvard Law School, right? To top it all off. What is there, like looking back, was there a kind of method to that path? Was there like, what's the thread that ties that together? What was your motive, like your kind of guiding principle there?
Yeah, there was definitely no like master plan at all. And I think my colleagues who've had a master plan, I've never seen anybody who had actually worked out that way. I really liked what I was doing at every job I had. And generally that led to somebody asking me, hey, have you thought about doing this? And if it seemed interesting, it's something I applied to do afterwards. And I never really knew where it was going. I was much more focused. I guess one way I would put it is I was much more focused on like what was right in front of me, doing the cases in front of me, and really going back to the competence issue. I was really, really interested in getting good at my craft. Like I really wanted to learn to try cases well. I really wanted to learn to investigate. When I became a federal prosecutor, I wanted to learn how that was different and how I could do more for a community in that position than I did as a state prosecutor. So I was so like right in what I was doing that the idea that this is going to lead to something or go somewhere else, that was never really part of the plan.
So we've talked about you when you were out there and your career and your path. Now you're up here on the stage and you're speaking to students who are trying to figure out what they're going to do, what their path is going to be. Let's talk about things that you would say to them. What are the guiding principles for them? How should they be thinking about their career? How should they be thinking about the choices they have, both as graduates of this law school, but also in the current climate that we're in?
Yeah. So I guess the first thing I would say is that if you're in this room and you're a student at this law school, you're in a privileged place. And one of the questions you have to ask yourself is, what are you going to do with that privilege? You have a lot of choices. Everybody who goes to this school has a lot of options. I chose public service, and everyone thinks their story is great, particularly if they enjoyed their career. So I'm a big advocate of public service. I think the moment we're in right now, a few things I would say is the first is it is very easy in moments like we're in now to get disillusioned about things. And I hear from young people who are like, I was going to pursue public service, but now I'm not. And I was going to go to the Justice Department, but now I'm not. And part of being an effective public servant is developing resilience. And yes, people who are in your shoes now are being asked at an earlier age to develop that resilience than say I was at my career. But that happens all the time. And it's okay to get disillusioned when something, an institution you care about starts going in the wrong direction. But I will say that my experience is that disillusioned people don't lead interesting lives. They don't get things done. And it doesn't lead anywhere good. I think that one of the biggest things that's important to me right now is that rather than all of us asking someone to fix things and someone to save us and someone to right all these wrongs, we should really all be looking at ourselves and saying, all right, what can I do? What is the little, I can't do everything, I can't change everything today, but what is the little thing, incremental thing I can do? And in moments like this, part of the whole process is to make it so you're meant to feel like you can't do anything. and that you're very alone. You look at the attempt last week to indict these senators and congressmen. It was meant to inspire fear. It was meant to make people self-censor and not speak up. But the reaction of those folks was courage. And fear is contagious, but so was courage. And so some of the things I would say just as a general sort of way to think about this moment is, one, don't put it on others. See what you can do, even if it's small. I think it's really important to support people who are willing to speak up. I can tell you from where I sit that really matters. And it has a snowball effect because someone speaks up, despite the fear, they're supported. Someone else says, wow, geez, that person did that, I'll do that. I think that's really important. I think all of us can play a role in that. The other two things I think are harder. And the first is that we need to have dialogue with people that we disagree with. And a lot of people talk about that, but I don't see as many people actually doing it. We tend to talk to people who agree with us and have the same kind of view of the world, or are in the same sort of social circles or academic circles. And my view is if we're going to come out of this better, which I personally believe we will, we need to be purposeful about finding ways to communicate with people who do not share our views. I think it's incredibly important that we do it respectfully, that we don't engage in sort of like ad hominem attacks or screaming and yelling and things of that nature. We treat people the right way, not because they deserve it, but because that's who we are. And that stuff's hard. None of us want to do it. It's much easier to talk to friends who agree with you and say how this thing that happened last week is awful and the next thing's awful. I would say to people who believe they care about these things to find ways to reach out to people who you disagree with and not tell them why you're right, but listen and see if you can find common ground. I think that's really important. It's a skill prosecutors have when you interview witnesses, people from different backgrounds. You have to be able to listen and see if you can find ways that they can hear you and you can hear them. And the last thing I would just say is on that topic, I know it's very easy to think we're so divided that these things are impossible, but I come to it from the perspective of a prosecutor who has this job of like convincing 12 people, right, who come from all different perspectives. And I think that despite the most extreme things getting the most popularity, I think that the common values that have guided my career and have been sort of the foundations of the Department of Justice, I think they're still there. Respecting each other, behaving with kindness, having integrity, being honest. I can't tell you how many times I get people who come up to me and tell me how much they value those things. These aren't people who are on TV or people who are, tweeting or whatever social media medium they use. I feel like that is there, and I think if we support that and we try to talk to people we differ with about kind of common values, I feel like that is a sort of thing. Everybody's got control of doing that. It's not maybe comfortable, but we can all do it. And I think that is a real foundation for the sort of changes we're going to need to see going forward with the Department of Justice and other institutions that are affected by the issues we're seeing now with the rule of law.
You said something about talking to people who disagree with you, and I wonder if there's examples you can give of that in your life, how you lead a life that way, but also how you can tie that to how you run an office.
Yeah. So,
because I know this about you.
So let me take it in reverse. So like one of the things I've learned, goes to like how you run an office, is people don't like to speak uphill. They do not like to tell the boss he's wrong. Just as a general matter, all of us, I know I'm that way, all of us are that way. And so if you're a boss and you want to get different points of view and you want to have like a real like honest discussion about things, you need to create an environment that empowers people to speak up when it would naturally make sense maybe not to. And so, as you know, Alex, one of the things I will do early on when I'm at a place is I will have a big meeting and I will look for a young, low-ranking person who says something really smart. And I will really raise that person up to show that like, and generally it's the best if it's really smart and it's different than what I think, right? And that creates an environment where people are like, oh, this guy actually wants to hear if he's wrong. And you just make such better decisions that sort of way. And you have to have thick enough skin that, hey, sometimes people personalize their view with who they are. You got to divorce that. And I think it's the same thing to reaching out to people who are different. I mean, because of that people know who I am now, I have people come up to me and say nice things and not so nice things. And not always, but sometimes when they start with the not nice things, we end with like, wow, you're a little different than I thought you were. That's hard, right? And it's not super fun. I actually don't have a choice because people come up to me. But I think it's a skill we should all try to, I'll help you all as lawyers for sure. But I also think it's the sort of thing that like you're going to find that there's a lot more you agree with people that you couldn't imagine you agreed with, but you got to interact with them first, which is the kind of hardest part of the whole thing.
So I have some more audience questions. One thing that kind of is in the background of some of the things you've been talking about with respect to prosecutors and integrity and relationship with judges and decisions that they make and how they make the decisions is, of course, prosecutorial discretion. The prosecutors are given an enormous amount of power to make those decisions and choose cases and investigations. Is the lesson of the last year that we should narrow that prosecutorial discretion?
Yeah, I think that's too broad a question. I would think of it more as this way. So there's different ways that we can bring reform to the criminal justice system as it exists now, right? And the three ways, you and I have talked about this, there's norms, there's laws, and there's the Constitution, right? And I think what we're seeing is today, a lot of the norms that I was raised on is like, this is how you do things. Turns out they're not written down anywhere, right? And turns out like there's not a thing in the Justice Department manual that says the president can't tell you to prosecute his enemies. Doesn't say that. Probably should say that now. And so I think, for me, I think a lot of the things that I was raised on as a prosecutor, we should think about making them more enforceable. And I do think there is a balance of, at one time, yes, prosecutorial discretion, having too broad discretion is one thing. But on the flip side, I'll just throw out, imagine today that there is a criminal act committed by the president or one of his cabinet members. How does that even get looked at? How would it even work? Like, they would not appoint someone outside the government like I was appointed, certainly, right? Because they wouldn't want the facts to be followed. And like, if you talk to like people about this, there's not really even a counter argument. Well, we would do this. And so we don't have a mechanism right now to combat corruption in the executive branch. If you strip all discretion from prosecutors, or you have, they can't investigate, it really will hamper the investigation of corruption. So I think it's a challenging question. For me, it's more about not so much narrowing it, but making the parameters on the edges of it more enforceable, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, so that then norms. So as you said, norms, change the laws, change the Constitution. Change the Constitution, that seems like a big lift. Changing laws, big lift. So are we then forced to think about reform through restoring norms, reforming norms, changing norms? Is that enough?
No, I think you have to look at all of it. I think, again...
So you want to do all of it?
Well, I think it depends on the particular issue and how big a problem it is. So, for example, if you think that, and again, put aside this administration, right? Like, just going forward, the lessons we want to learn. You look at Watergate, right? Watergate happened. It made people cynical. It made people distrust the government. The president was going after his enemies. Corruption in all different agencies, including the Department of Justice. What came out of that were reforms. Laws got passed, right? The Inspector General's Act, which really was a great help with the rule of law in this country. That came out of that. Public Integrity Section, which combated corruption for decades, directly comes out of Watergate. And so I guess I push back on the idea that we can't pass laws. We're not going to pass them tomorrow morning, and it's going to take sustained effort and sacrifice. But I wouldn't just go to, the only thing we can do is talk about norms. I think everything's on the table. We need to get, again, consensus about core values to base that on.
With respect to everything being on the table, there's a question about the role of state legal regulators, bar associations and courts. Do they have a role to play in holding prosecutors to account?
Well, I think they do. I think
should they? Should it be? I mean, of course, technically they do, but how? Like, is that part of the solution? That disbarring prosecutors who cross red lines, as you've talked about?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the rules for a prosecutor as a lawyer should be any different than anybody else. And so if I'm a defense attorney and I lie to the court knowingly, or I'm a prosecutor and I lie to the court knowingly, I think they're both wrongs that a bar association could deal with. I'm not sure I see a role for the bar associations to play a particular role because the federal government won't play the role itself. I'm not sure that that's the solution. My thoughts about it to date have been on how we make the Justice Department itself functional again, and function in a way where prosecutors, defense attorneys, other lawyers can be treated the same.
We got this question, which I think is a variation on a question you've talked about with respect to resignations. But if someone were to get a job offer from the DOJ today, should they take it or not?
If this one I can answer strongly and unequivocally, if that's a career you want to pursue, 100% you should continue pursuing it. The system is not going to work if good people are driven away from public service. And we're talking not about like just today, you as a law student or you as a 3L starting your career. We can't have a thing where like there's a year of things that happen that are, again, in my view, an attack on the rule of law, and everyone decides we're just going to give up on the project. So I would strongly urge people, if that was their interest, not to change that interest. I'm not trying to pretend. It might not be a different experience than what you had planned, but we need people who will run towards the fire, not away from it. And if you want to be a public servant, you have to either have that instinct or develop that instinct. And so that one I feel pretty strongly about.
There's a question about if you talked about your view of the rule of law. You talked about communication. This question is, do you think that the public's appreciation for the importance of the rule of law and what it means is waning? Has it become a kind of empty phrase that we throw around? Do people understand what it means?
Yeah, it's challenging because I think, when you talk among lawyers, you talk among lay people, you might get different answers. But one thing I would say about that, and this is again like one of the sacrifices or things you need to think through being a public servant.
Did you say among white people?
Particularly being a prosecutor. The public often judges prosecutors by a metric that I don't think is the metric to judge prosecutors, right? If you're a prosecutor, you follow the facts and you follow the law and you go where you need to go based on that. They may result in a case that's really tough to win and you might lose, but you're supposed to bring that case. It also may result in dismissing a case or not pursuing a case that everybody outside of your office who doesn't know all the facts thinks you're a coward for not pursuing. The public, you don't bring that case that everyone thought you should bring. They think you're weak and you stink, but it actually took more strength not to bring that case than to just follow public opinion on it. Prosecutors get rewarded for winning in court, and you should want to win in court because you shouldn't bring cases you didn't think were righteous. But at the same time, I don't know any prosecutors who've done it for a long time who haven't lost cases, because that means you're not bringing tough cases. And so the metric of how the public might measure this in a shorthand versus what career prosecutors in the department know is the ethic of who's really good at the job. Those are always going to be a little different. But with the rule of law specifically, I think it's up. This goes back to the communication point. I think it's up to people like the folks in this room to have conversations with people who didn't go to law school and who are friends who aren't in that world, and kind of break these concepts down to them in ways that are, they're not going to be a brief for the Supreme Court, but they're in language that people can understand, because it'll come back to common values. It'll come back to the common values that I think a lot of us share, whether we have a law degree or not.
And if you were having that conversation with somebody who's not at the law school and you're trying to explain what's at stake and why it's important, because we live in an age where there's a lot of cynicism and so how do you communicate that? How do you communicate like the what's at stake here?
I think, my experience in life that people.
Well, hi, what's up? What do you want?
I just want to talk about Taylor Lorenz.
Oh. Yeah, what about her?
What's going on?
Just chilling, just streaming. I'm streaming, right? You know that?
Oh, I don't really watch your streams. Sorry, bro.
Just don't say anything crazy. What's up?
Okay. Well, we're supposed to be advertising ASU.
True.
True. Can you put up the poster?
Yep, hold on.
Okay. Everybody come to ASU. The New York Times just reached out. They're going to come cover us.
Very nice. That's cool. Hold on.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, it's not just ASU. We're doing all the spring tour stops.
Yeah, should be fun. What do you want to talk about it?
I want everybody to come.
Okay.
I want everybody to, well, actually, so if you're a college student that's watching right now, we need more chapters, because unfortunately, now that we're getting a bunch of chapters, Myron Gaines's little posse are like copying us, and they're also getting chapters, which is a little scary. So we need more chapters.
How do you become a chapter? What does that mean?
All you have to be is just a college student. That's it. At any school. You can be at a community college. You can be at a 4-year school. It doesn't matter.
And it doesn't even cost any money at all? Really?
Nothing. In fact, we even pay if there's a fee. Can you believe that?
Wow. That's crazy. Yeah. I can't even believe that.
So you just need 5 people to start a chapter. If you need help getting 5 people, we could probably help you. So reach out. Email info@nationalgroundgame.com and tell us what school you're at.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then the chapters help us because that's how it helps us get onto some college campuses so they can sponsor the event, right?
Well, that's one way it helps us. But then also we get you involved in the local races that matter in the area. So like UCLA is going to be helping Derek Tran's race because he won by like 500 votes, and that's like a very scary district that we got to hold on to.
Gotcha. Do
ASU
go ahead.
and University of Arizona, they're going to be doing their own races as well. So like wherever you're at, we're going to hook you up with the right race to get involved in.
What you mentioned something about your what was it, like a ballot initiative or something, or what was the billionaire thing you were doing in California, in Southern California?
Yeah, we're carrying like between 4 and 7 petitions. So that's one of the petitions we're doing, but we're carrying a bunch of them, and that's $30 an hour, LA. But do not reach out to me if you're not gonna fucking hustle. Please only reach out. Please.
Wow.
Like people have been
Hustlers
messaging me.
only. Okay.
They're like, "Do you pay for mental health days?" No, I'm a Republican in this.
Jesus.
No, don't. You guys are gonna clip me. Don't clip me. No, but actually, like, I need hustlers down there that are really gonna work. I have like 40 canvassers down there right now, and I'm trying to expand every day. So.
Gotcha.
Yep, I pay for a room in Airbnb. I pay for your flight there and your flight back. It's until mid-May. And yeah, if you can get 10 petitions an hour, you get paid $30. If you get 20 petitions, you get paid $40. And I give people bonuses that are good.
Damn.
I think it's pretty good pay, okay? But people complain, so.
Yeah. I don't know what the standard pay is for any of it, so yeah, sounds good to me. Welcome.
What was the last job you had?
Before streaming, I was a carpet cleaner.
Did you get paid okay doing that?
Fuck no.
No? What were you getting paid?
I mean, theoretically, my commission was $16 for every $100 I billed, and a $100 bill is about an hour's worth of work, so $300 will be about 3 hours worth of work. But like the time at the shop, I didn't really get paid for it, and then in between jobs, I didn't get paid for. So I might be there for like a day, and I only have like 3 one-hour jobs, so I'll make like $36 over like 12 hours or something stupid. It was just a dog shit, horrible, bad time of my life. Not good.
Not good. We've all been there. True facts. Yeah, no, I think $30 an hour is good. I mean, especially if you get a lot of hours, you know?
Yeah, I agree. What,
Yeah.
what you said you came here initially for Taylor Lorenz related stuff. What's your issue with T-Dog?
Dude, my whole thing is that I watched the 2 hours of torture that you unfortunately had to put us through, and I just don't think that there's any way that woman is gonna fucking she's just so unserious. Like, I can't even. I mean, an LLC is dark money, whether you like it or not. I don't care if she takes dark money. That is not my problem. I don't care. You can take dark money all you want. My issue with her is that she lies about it.
Sure.
And that she makes fun of people that are also taking dark money. Like, oh god, it fucking drives me insane.
Yeah, I guess I really just don't like the term dark money. If you're referring to like a particular entity itself, then I think it's okay. But once you start like going downstream of that, I think that gets really stupid really fast. So like if I'm funding somebody to go and do a thing, you know what I believe in, you know what I'm telling them to do. Like, it really doesn't matter at that point, like who's giving me money per se. What matters is like I'm giving money to somebody else, and then these are the objectives that I would hope to achieve. The idea that you would call that person funded by dark money because you don't know who my funders are, that's just very weird to me, because you could just run that line down infinitely for anything. It just seems really stupid to me. I don't know.
I mean, pretty much everything in politics is dark money.
Depending on how far back you want to trace or whatever.
Unless you're an individual candidate, right?
Yeah,
but
candidates
like
or PACs, yeah.
Yeah, but most funding doesn't go through PACs or candidates. It goes through IE programs because there's no limit on them, right? So
sure.
Yeah. So I mean, you have to abide by the individual contribution limit if you're going through a campaign.
Through a PAC or a candidate, yeah. But for the hybrid entities or the super PACs, or these C4, C3 hybrids, you don't have the same. Well, you have no limits, right?
Yeah, there's no limit. So that's why they run it. But it's I don't know. If you really care about this stuff, then why aren't you investigating Republicans? Like, she investigated like one Republican entity like fucking 5 years ago. That doesn't count. Like, if you actually care about dark money, that's what you would be doing.
Sure.
You know, I mean, there's so much. The thing is like, obviously, I mean, we need some form of campaign finance reform, right? Like, I think everybody can agree on that. But we have to, I mean, if we're going to have like a serious conversation about that, then we have to have we have to be honest with where we're at, and she's not being honest with where we're at.
Yeah, because nobody actually cares about these issues. They just weaponize them to go after the people they don't like, right? That's my big issue with a lot of like finance related talk is that the people just don't have much information about the structures. They don't know much about tax or entity formation or anything. And then they're very selective in terms of how they critique things, and they're very sneaky with the way that they approach it all, and it just feels very stupid. Yeah.
Did you ever get an answer out of her as to why we never saw the damn contract?
She would just like vaguely allude to lawyers or whatever, but that's I don't know. It's annoying. It's annoying because there weren't even any. There weren't very many quotes in that article that were longer than like 2 words about the contract itself. And she keeps saying they were citing to it, but her citation is like her opinion. Like generally, I'm not aware of like I don't know what it means to cite to something that we can't read or that's not publicly available. Like I'm citing to something that nobody has access to except for me, but the citation is just her opinion on the thing. It's just very frustrating to me. I don't know.
I don't even get what the criticism is, because the thing is like, I mean, I know a lot of the content creators in Chorus, right? Because one of my friends created Chorus. And first of all, I don't think that he's sneaky like that. I just like personally, right? But like, because he actually gives a shit about this stuff. He could make a lot more money doing other things. He doesn't even get paid to do Chorus. Like that's just like a passion project. The same thing as like National Ground Game is to me. But let's just say that, okay, they were getting talking points from the Democratic Party. Like, what is the issue? I don't even know what the issue with that even is. Like, Republicans do this all the time. If you go into the Republican sphere, right, and you, like, talk to Mercedes about this, she'll tell you all about this because she used to be in the Republican sphere. They are constantly in group chats, like, giving each other talking points. The talking points are coming from the top down. They're getting paid for that. Like, so why is it, if that is such a big issue, then, like, I just don't even get why that would be an issue for us to do the exact same thing.
I mean, I can understand the frustrating part about it, but the thing is what you would have to push for is a reform on how they're legally allowed to operate. Because like I can understand being annoyed. If I see 10 different creators giving a talking point that feels good, I would view that a lot differently if I knew the funding for that was all coming from a single source. I would view that differently. And I think that's worth knowing about. But like, I don't know why you would attack an individual entity that's using this. Like everybody should be doing that, given that it's currently legal. If you want to change it, then change the laws around it.
I agree.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. I mean, I feel like we should just be like, I just don't understand why anybody is against us, like combating red pill pipeline information or bad Republican information. Like we're already so far behind in this, right? Like there's so many studies out there that shows that we're like Republicans are pushing out like whatever it is, like 50 times more like content than us every day. So like I just don't get the issue of having Democratic influencers coordinating together. I just don't know what the issue with that would be.
Yeah, I mean, broadly, I don't really think she's too supportive of the Democratic Party.
Oh no shit.
Yeah. So I don't think.
But what made you think that? Was it the retweeting of Hassan calling you a pedophile?
Well, that could just be personal hatred for me, right?
I don't know. I feel like she has a lot of personal hatred for me too. Don't worry. She's been tweeting at me 100 fucking times in the last 24 hours. So
nice. Oh yeah.
And she just keeps saying the same thing.
She just she loves the internet. She spends a lot of time on the internet.
Yeah, clearly. Seriously. Well, anyway, that was a painful thing to watch. Thanks for putting us through all that. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Pretty annoying.
So yeah, ASU, everybody come. Does anybody have questions about the chapters or about the events or anything? I don't know how to see chat. Hold on. I already told you I'm a boomer like this. One sec.
Mate, if you don't have a defib, come eat my stuff. Good luck.
What?
Nothing. I was talking to my friend.
Oh.
Don't worry about it. Yeah, fuck.
I don't know how to like mute the chat and mute it at the same time. But yeah, if anybody has questions, let me know because I'm happy to answer stuff. Or you can just message me. Message me on Discord. I use my real name on Discord, so you can find me. You still there? I can't hear you.
Yeah. Well, I don't have any questions. I don't go to college. I can't start a chapter.
Jeez. Okay.
What do you want me to say?
I don't know. Jeez. I was just came to give the information.
Good.
Okay, cool. Well, that was all from me. I just came for a quick Taylor Lorenz bitch and a quick shameless plug, and that was about it.
Cool. All right. Well, I'll see you around. I'll keep trying to plug the ASU stuff, and yeah.
I'll see you at ASU.
Hopefully, yeah. It should be.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Be
Okay.
here.
Have a good day.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Okay. I should do this so that I have this down in case this debate ever fucking comes up again. Somebody said join Tim Miller on his stream. Does he take people on his stream? If you covered Taylor Lorenz retweeting all of your anti-fans today? No, but I mean, that's expected. Okay. Why the fuck did this get weird?